Chapter 577. 500 Tales of Gold. Can make the old consecrator of the pill department teach me alchemy? Zhang Xiaohua opened her mouth wide in disbelief. Zhou Shuming smiled and said, "That's right. As long as you take out the 500 taels of gold leaves, you'll get what you want." But Zhang Xiaohua hesitated and said, "Isn't it the rule of our pill expanding hall that the grass department disciples can't come into contact with the pill room? How can they teach alchemy?" Zhou Shuming snorted and said, "Rules are set by people. Since ancient times, there has been an example of doctors can't be punished. This rule can restrict you and me, but it can't restrict others." "Others?" Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously. "Who is others?" "Wu Dalong." Zhou Shuming knew he had blurted out and hurriedly said, "Don't ask who it is. Just tell me if you agree." Zhang Xiaohua touched her chin and said, "But how do you know I want to make alchemy? And learn alchemy from the old consecrator?" Zhou Shuming said angrily, "Didn't I say it was Wu Dalong's order?" Alas, to tell you the truth, your headmaster Chen of the grass department has been on Tianmu Peak for decades, and he has never asked Wu Dalong to lend him the pill room. He has always taken the pills. Now that you've come, he immediately asked Wu Dalong to lend him the pill room and asked the old consecrator about alchemy. Also, you've collected a lot of medicinal herbs. How can our Dalong not know you want to learn alchemy?" Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, "Headmaster Chen is a little impatient. I'm just curious about the alchemy of our pill expanding hall and want to learn." Halfway through, she suddenly changed her words. "Can Wu Dalong ask the old consecrator to teach me alchemy?" "Dalong can't, but..." Zhou Shuming blurted out carelessly, but he immediately understood and said, "A straightforward person doesn't resort to insinuations. Junior brother Ren, don't try to sound me out. I really don't know anything. You just have to tell me if it's okay or not." Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and said, "I am sorry to disappoint Wu Dalong. How can Shouty's gold leaf be worth 500 taels? 200 taels was already not bad. Of course, telling Senior Martial Brother Chung 500 taels was just to extort him. Senior Martial Brother Zhou, where are you going to get 300 gold taels from? We don't even have pills of the same value. We only have the herbs in the hut on the mountainside." "What? No more than 500 taels?" Zhou Shuming looked at Zhang Xiaohua in disbelief. Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly and said, "That golden leaf was only given to me by Rejuvenation Valley. Do you think I'm an important person? They gave me 500 taels of gold all at once? I'm already burning incense to be able to get 200 taels. This..." Zhou Shuming sucked in a breath. He was a little embarrassed. After thinking for a while, he asked, "How about this, Junior Brother Ren? I've been very thoughtful as your messenger. What if you give these 200 taels of gold to Dalong and ask him to find you a consecrator to teach you about medicinal pills? What do you think?" "Why do I need your consecrator to teach me alchemy? I just want Headmaster Chen to find a place to refine pills. I've never thought of learning alchemy from the old consecrator. Moreover, I've already found a pill room and a magical pill furnace. Why should I dawdle with you?" Zhang Xiaohua thought to herself. She then cupped her hands and said, "Senior Martial Brother Zhou, please report back to Wu Dalong and thank him for his kindness. However, I know my own aptitude. Even in Rejuvenation Valley, I couldn't learn any alchemy skills, let alone the consecrators of our pill expanding hall who have godlike alchemy skills. I don't dare to have extravagant hopes." Zhou Shuming obviously didn't expect Zhang Xiaohua to refuse. He asked, "Junior Brother Ren, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You've really decided? Don't regret it in the future." "I've decided." Zhang Xiaohua nodded and said, "I don't have any lofty ambitions since I was a child. I only hope to be able to farm and practice martial arts. That's the best life for me." "Well, since Junior Brother Ren has made a choice, I'll report back to Dalong." Zhou Shuming sighed and turned to leave with his lightness skill. In the distance, Bai Huan hid behind a tree and watched quietly. After Zhou Shuming left, she quickly walked forward and asked, "Junior Brother Ren, why did Senior Martial Brother Zhou look for you?" Zhang Xiaohua looked at Bai Huan with a faint smile and said, "It's nothing. Wu Dalong of the pill department wants me to join him because he sees that I'm good at martial arts." "Join him?" Bai Huan didn't understand for a moment. He wants me to be a disciple of the pill department? Zhang Xiaohua said grumpily. Humph. Bai Huan curled her lips and said disdainfully, how is that possible? Although Wu Dalong is the head of the pill department of Tianmu Peak, he doesn't have any authority to transfer you from the grass department to the pill department. Only the 2 hall masters of our pill repository hall can do this. Don't tease me. The 2 hall masters? Zhang Xiaohua was stunned for a moment, but he immediately understood something. He snorted from his nose. The 2 hall masters' appetites are not small, and their hands are also not short. Appetites? Bai Huan was puzzled. How can our hall master and deputy hall master Su take a fancy to a nobody like you? Tell me, why did Senior Marshal Brother Zhou look for you? Alas, what else can it be? It's about the next gambling fight. Eh? The next gambling fight. What's the matter? Bai Huan's eyes immediately lit up. The time of the next gambling fight hasn't been set. Senior Marshal Brother Zhou just wants me to be merciful if I meet him at that time. Uffed. Bai Huan couldn't help laughing. Junior Brother Ren, you're so funny. Senior Marshal Brother Zhou is the head of the 10 Great Vajras, and he wants you to be merciful? Please, don't tell such a low-level lie, okay? Forget it. Look, I'm telling you the truth, but you don't believe me. Then why are you still listening? Zhang Xiaohua was a little displeased and turned to leave. Junior Brother Ren. Bai Huan raised her hand and wanted to stop Zhang Xiaohua, but then she thought, alas, Headmaster Chun just wants me to keep an eye on him and tell him whatever he says. Why should I make him unhappy? I still have to rely on him to make progress in the gambling fight in the future. After that, Bai Huan didn't follow Zhang Xiaohua. She walked to a medicinal field and didn't mention weeding and watering. Zhang Xiaohua saw that Bai Huan didn't ask shamelessly and relaxed. He didn't want everyone to know that he wanted to refine pills and learn alchemy from the consecrated elders of the pill division. Therefore, he walked into the cave and entered the pill room. Zhou Shuming returned to the mountainside and told Wu Zhoushu what Zhang Xiaohua said. What? He's actually not willing? Wu Zhoushu was also a little surprised. Then, he snorted and said, it's really hard to be a good person these days. If it weren't for what you said, this Ren Xiaoyao can live alone in the cave and cultivate his internal strength. I think he's a promising talent. I wouldn't be bothered to find a consecrated elder to teach him alchemy. He's just an ordinary disciple of the grass division. They can easily destroy him. Speaking of this, he stopped abruptly and said to Zhou Shuming with a smile, well, Junior Brother Zhou, you've worked hard. Just tell him what I said. If he's not willing, then let him be. It seems that I really care about his golden leaves. By the way, keep a close eye on this Ren Xiaoyao in the future. If there's anything, report back as soon as possible. Okay, don't worry. I'll definitely keep a close eye on him. In fact, he spends most of the day in the cave. I can't see him clearly and I don't know what he's doing. I know about that cave. I've occasionally been there before. It's just a small cave. Besides refining his internal strength, can he also refine pills? If he's in the cave, let him stay there. Just keep a close eye on his tracks when he comes out. Zhou Shuming saluted and came out, then went to keep a lookout. Wu Zhoushu sat in a chair and frowned slightly. This young man is still young. He can't tell what's important and what's important. I've already made Zhou Shuming speak so clearly. Don't you know what I'm hinting at? He told me to hint to you to send the golden leaves over. I even added a condition to let you learn how to refine pills. I've already done my duty. If you don't appreciate it, then I have nothing to say. Fine. Since you're a disciple of the grass sect, I'll just tell you what I said. I can't do anything else. After thinking, he shouted, Third Mo. A disciple answered and came in, bowing to salute. Wu Zhoushu walked in front of him and whispered a few words. That's how it is. You go and report to Vice Hall Leader Su. Even if Ren Xiaoyao is a member of the grass sect, I can only reveal his intentions to him. Ren Xiaoyao actually dares to not put me in his eyes. I don't have any good ideas, so I'll have to ask him to make a decision. The disciple listened carefully, then turned and left the hall. Behind him, Wu Zhoushu still shook his head slightly, leaving aside the fact that Wu Zhoushu of the pill sect had designs on Zhang Xiaohua's golden leaves. In the pill room on Tianmu Peak, Zhang Xiaohua was holding the green jade slip, thinking of a way to break the seal. This jade slip was not like a magic weapon. It did not need to be refined. Moreover, Zhang Xiaohua had first come into contact with this kind of jade slip, so she was familiar with it. This jade slip was different from others. The seal on it was very exquisite. It could actually isolate Zhang Xiaohua's spiritual sense. It was comparable to refining the world. Of course, it was also because she suffered a great loss from breaking the seal on, refining the world, that her Dancore in her Naiwan palace was almost damaged. This time, Zhang Xiaohua was unusually cautious. Zhang Xiaohua released her spiritual sense and looked at the seal on her own. She reviewed the seals that she had learned previously, as well as the ways to break the jade slip in refining the world. Then, she threw the jade slip into the air. Following that, her left hand formed a seal and sent the seal into the jade slip. Indeed, after trying a few methods, the seal on the jade slip actually loosened. It was completely different from before when there was no reaction at all. Thus, Zhang Xiaohua did not delay. Her hands formed seals and sent the rest of the seals into the jade slip. Not long after, the seal was completely broken. She did not encounter the situation where her spiritual sense was absorbed. Looking at the green jade slip in the air, it was as green as bamboo after the rain. Zhang Xiaohua did not hesitate to send her spiritual sense into it. When she saw the contents of the jade slip, she could not help but raise her eyebrows in joy. -3. Chapter 578. The words on the jade scroll were, Flight Technique. It was the flight technique that Zhang Xiaohua had learned during the day and at night. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed as he carefully read the contents of the jade scroll from the beginning. Just as he saw the beginning of the jade scroll, Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. Dear readers, what do you think? It turned out that the beginning of the flight technique was the ethereal steps that Openg had given to Zhang Xiaohua when he was at the Misty Mountain Villa. This ethereal steps was different from the ethereal steps that Zhang Xiaohua had learnt back then. This ethereal steps was only a part of what He Tianshu had taught him previously. It was also the levitation technique that He Tianshu would never be able to learn. Reading up to this point, Zhang Xiaohua began to ponder. This levitation technique is obviously the foundation of the flight technique. The ethereal steps that the Misty Mountain Villa sent over previously must have been a footwork technique that was improved and suitable for martial arts. It wasn't originally recorded in the flight technique. However, I heard that the ethereal steps was divided into 9 levels. I have only learnt 3 levels, but I don't know the other levels. I wonder what is behind this flight technique? Then, Zhang Xiaohua continued to read with great interest. After he had roughly finished reading the entire jade scroll, he understood. The flight technique of the Misty Mountain Villa was divided into 3 levels. They were levitation technique, wind controlling technique, and flight technique. It was a gradual process. Only by learning the first 2 levels could one finally learn the flight technique and fly freely in the air. The flight technique is divided into 3 levels. The ethereal steps is further divided into 9 levels. The first level of the flight technique is the levitation technique, which corresponds to the levitation technique and Qinggong of the Misty Mountain Villa's 3rd level. I believe the flight technique and flight technique should correspond to the wind controlling technique and the flight technique. Only, I don't know how the seniors of the Misty Mountain Villa improved it. Could it be that when the Misty Mountain Villa reaches the 9th level of the ethereal steps, one can also fly with the wind controlling technique? Zhang Xiaohua didn't believe it. If Openg could fly, he would have flown away from Misty Peak long ago. How could he be forced to commit suicide? Alas, Zhang Xiaohua did not realize that Openg did not have any hope of escaping that day. However, how could the Zhang Xiaohua understand the Openg of that day? Having obtained the flight technique, Jade Scroll, Zhang Xiaohua was very excited. That's right, back on the deserted island, he had already seen the flight technique in the Fiery Dragon Genren Jade Scroll. He also knew that when the Immortal Tao was flourishing, Immortal Tao practitioners used the flight technique to travel everywhere. Very few people used the 5 elements escape technique. Before he obtained this technique, he only knew the levitation technique, which could only be used as a lightness skill. When it came to escape techniques, he could only use the earth escape technique. In the pitch-black underground, he was like a mouse. Ever since he escaped into the mysterious cave under the mountain stream and almost lost his life, Zhang Xiaohua did not want to use the earth escape technique anymore. Unfortunately, he still did not know the flight technique and could only use the earth escape technique. Now that he had finally achieved his long-cherished wish, of course he had to make full use of the earth escape technique. As previously mentioned, the flight technique of the Misty Mountain Villa was divided into 3 levels. Each level was more difficult than the previous one. Although Zhang Xiaohua had already seen the levitation technique recorded in the Jade Scroll and had cultivated it before, the flight technique on the Jade Scroll was much more complicated than the one on the white paper. Zhang Xiaohua had no choice but to carefully ponder over it and cultivate it again. On the White Mountain Peak, in an exquisite little courtyard, Vice Hall Master Su held a short sword in his hand and played with it lovingly. Wasn't this the one that Yang Yao had reluctantly given to him? At first, Vice Hall Master Su didn't pay much attention to the short sword. He only felt that Yang Yao had dared to violate the rules of the Pill Repository Hall and arbitrarily took Zhang Xiaohua, who didn't meet the requirements, into the fragrant cult as a medicine boy. He had no choice but to teach Yang Yao a lesson. Moreover, Yang Yao had always been very close to Sage and had always been indifferent to him. Now that he finally had an opportunity, how could he not take advantage of it? At first, he didn't pay much attention to the short sword. However, after a long time, he discovered that the short sword was abnormally sharp. Even some of the divine weapons he had collected couldn't compare to it. Moreover, the style was simple and the shape was short and small. It was just right for him to hold it in his hand. This Yang Yao, TSK, he actually collected such a good thing from the Rejuvenation Valley. Hee. Don't think that only the Hall Master can make decisions in the Pill Repository Hall. Although I can't have the final say, I can also make it so that you don't have the final say. Then, there was a greedy look in his eyes as he muttered to himself, 500 taels of gold leaf. How many years has it been since I've seen it? That golden color is the most beautiful color in this time. At this moment, a disciple walked in and reported, Vice Hall Master Su. Tianmu Peak's Wuzhou Ruins sent a disciple to report again. Tianmu Peak? Wuzhou Ruins? Vice Hall Master Su was stunned. What does he want? Could it be? Vice Hall Master Su revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. Let him in quickly. Yes. The disciple was rather surprised to see Vice Hall Master Su so happy. However, when Vice Hall Master Su saw the empty-handed Tianmu Peak disciple, his expression turned ugly. He frowned inconspicuously and said in a low voice, Why did Wuzhou Ruins send you here? The disciple looked around. Seeing that there was no one else waiting, he softly told him about Zhang Xiaohua's refusal to hand over the gold leaf. Vice Hall Master Su's expression darkened even more. He slammed the table and said angrily, What is this Wuzhou Ruins doing? I only asked him to keep an eye on him. Who asked him to speak first? He attracted attention for no reason. What an incompetent guy. Seeing Vice Hall Master Su's anger, the disciple shrunk his neck and did not dare to speak. After a while, Vice Hall Master Su looked at the disciple from the corner of his eyes and said, What did Wuzhou Ruins say to that guy who doesn't know what's good for him? Did he mention my name? The disciple was somewhat hesitant. Although what Wuzhou Ruins did was not a big deal, it was done in secret. He did not intend to let a trusted disciple like him know. However, there was no such thing as a secret in the world. Furthermore, he was Wuzhou Ruins' trusted disciple. How could he not see or hear things that he should not hear? It was fine if he knew these things, but if he said it, Wuzhou Ruins might not be happy. Seeing the disciple's hesitation, Vice Hall Master Su grinned. Could it be that you're Wu Dalong? The disciple hurriedly bowed and said, Dalong has always been cautious. This matter was not handled by me, so I am not clear. However, although I did not see it with my own eyes, I more or less know a little. Thus, he told Vice Hall Master Su all that he had seen and guessed. Humph. Vice Hall Master Su was even more furious. He's just Rejuvenation Valley's son-in-law. So arrogant. He thinks that he can climb up the Hall Master and does not respect me. Haha, very good, very good. You can go back. Tell Wu Zhou Ruins to just keep an eye on this guy. There's no need to alert him. I know of his loyalty. How can I do something like taking someone's things for no reason? He did very well. It's to my liking. After the disciple left, Vice Hall Master Su pulled a long face and secretly said, Ren Xiaoyao, since you don't want face, then don't blame me for using some tricks. Hee hee, 500 taels of gold leaves are like dung in the incense-spreading cult. Only hall masters like us have some use for them. Don't you know that they are hot to the touch? At this moment, another disciple hurried in and reported, Vice Hall Master Su, the hall master has an urgent matter. Urgent matter? Vice Hall Master Su was stunned. Did the hall master say what it is? I don't know. However, our pill-spreading hall has never had any urgent matters. Since the hall master has said so, Vice Hall Master Su should hurry over. You go back first. I will go over immediately. After the disciple walked away, Vice Hall Master Su tidied his clothes and immediately went out. As he walked, he muttered, could it be that Ren Xiaoyao complained to the hall master? That's impossible. Alas, a typical case of a guilty conscience. Among the 19 peaks of the incense-spreading cult, the highest peak in the middle was the lingering fragrance peak where the inner disciples resided. At this moment, in a secluded small courtyard on the lingering fragrance peak, a beautiful woman sat cross-legged and looked out of the window. Her eyes revealed a trace of confusion. The lingering fragrance peak was taller and more majestic than the other mountain peaks. That turbulent sea of clouds and the white mist that diffused from the mountainside enveloped half of the lingering fragrance peak. The residences of the inner sect disciples were located at the mountainside. Therefore, there were pavilions and terraces, white cranes dancing in the air, and plum deers playing in the air, coupled with the delicate boys and girls, and the mist that lingered from time to time. The entire lingering fragrance peak was practically a heavenly realm of jade. Although the woman's courtyard was not big, the vegetation was lush and several small houses were scattered in picturesque disorder. In the middle of the courtyard, there was a small pond. From time to time, golden carps would jump out of the water. Coupled with the few lotus leaves and flowers, it was quite interesting. Peacock, a kind voice sounded. The woman was stunned and immediately stood up in surprise. She turned around and said, Master, you have come out. Your Mortal Heart Sutra has been completed? The confusion in the woman's eyes disappeared, and her face revealed a graceful temperament. Wasn't she the outstanding disciple of the incense-spreading cult, Peacock? Following the voice, an old woman in a palace dress floated in. Her hair was white, and the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes were not consistent with the delicate skin on her face. She was Peacock's master, Abbess Jingfan. Abbess Jingfan saw Peacock and was also happy. She smiled and said, It's just a small, isolated practice. How can it be as successful as you think? Mortal Heart Sutra. If Mortal Heart Sutra can be completed so easily, then how can it be called the Supreme Sutra that is most likely to connect mortals and heavenly realm? Peacock smiled and said, Then Master must have reached a higher level. I have only been out for a few months and Master has already gone into isolated practice. You must have achieved something. Only you have a sweet mouth. And where is Chunshin? Where did that crazy girl run off to? Master, please don't blame her. Junior sister Chin waited for a few more days and finally couldn't stand the loneliness. She just left yesterday. Who knows which uncle she went to? I will send the boys to look for her. Haha, no need to rush. Peacock, let me see. You have changed a lot after going out. How come? Master has already walked behind you, and you still haven't noticed? Is there something on your mind? -3. Chapter 579. Well, Peacock blushed. I was distracted by some things. It's not what you were thinking. What were you thinking about? Nanjing Fan asked. Master, you're teasing me again. Peacock did not fall for it. Her tone was slightly angry. Haha. Nanjing Fan laughed. It's nothing. You're not young anymore. It's normal for you to have some thoughts. There's no need to hide it from me. This trip to Vow City, that's what I wanted as well. Why are you so shy? But, Master, if it's really as you said, then I'll admit it, but... Peacock was embarrassed and confused. After all, Zhang Xiaohua was the son-in-law of the cult of fragrance. He was only a 15-year-old teenager. Seeing Peacock like this, Nanjing Fan did not press the issue. She smiled and said, "All right, if you don't want to talk about it, I won't force you. Just tell me about your trip. You haven't been to Vow Lake for decades. I wonder if there have been any changes?" "Master, it's not that I don't want to talk about it. It's just that I don't know where to start." Then I'll tell you." After that, Peacock told Nanjing Fan about her trip to Vow City and Rejuvenation Valley. Of course, what she told Nanjing Fan this time was more than what she told Nanjing Fan last time. This extra content, of course, was about Zhang Xiaohua. Nanjing Fan's reaction was similar to Nanjing Yi's. She did not interrupt Peacock in the middle of the story. She nodded and asked, "Your injuries have healed? Come, let me take a look." Peacock's heart warmed. "You're really my master." Even though Nanjing Fan expressed her concern, her first question was about the details of the ambush, and now she's talking about my injuries. Peacock obediently extended her hand. Nanjing Fan placed her finger on Peacock's wrist. She channeled a strand of inner energy into her, circling around her meridians for a while before withdrawing. Nanjing Fan smiled with satisfaction. "Not bad. Your inner cultivation has improved in these few months. You haven't slacked off." Peacock lowered her head. "I dare not. Master has always taught me that cultivation is like sailing against the current. If you don't advance, you'll fall behind. I dare not disobey." "Haha, very good. That minor meridian nourishing pill is really miraculous. The injuries in your meridians have been completely healed, and it has even expanded slightly. It's greatly beneficial to your future cultivation. Compared to this, those few years of cultivation that you obtained for free are nothing." What? Master, this disciple thought that obtaining 7 years' worth of cultivation was already enough. Who would have thought that this minor meridian nourishing pill would have such an effect? Then wouldn't the real pulse-soothing pill be even more miraculous? Peacock was very surprised. Sigh, the exact effects of the Real Meridian Soothing Pill are unknown even in the sect's records. Who knows what it will be like? Moreover, just this minor meridian nourishing pill is about to go extinct. What a pity. By the way, you said that when you saw this child, you felt like heaven and earth were filling up. That's strange. Even though I didn't make much progress during this seclusion, but I did make some small progress. I managed to catch a glimpse of the realm of immortality, and at the same time, I also saw a corner of the heavenly axiom. Even though it was just a glimpse, but that brief moment was enough to shock me. In front of the immortal heavenly axiom, I'm like an ant. I'm even smaller than an ant. This feeling is very similar to what you encountered? Master. Congratulations, Master. You actually managed to catch a glimpse of the heavenly axiom. Could it be that our mortal heart sutra is real? Nonsense. The Abbess Jing fan scolded Peacock. Of course the mortal heart sutra is real. It's the blood, sweat, and tears of our ancestors. How could it be fake? But, Peacock argued, the realms in the Heart Sutra are too mystical. In the end, it's all unimaginable martial arts. The Abbess Jing fan smiled. Am I not walking forward step by step? Do you still have any doubts? I don't dare to have any more doubts. Peacock lowered her head in shame. It's not just you. When I was your age, I was the same. I was young and frivolous. The Abbess Jing fan now was like a loving mother. She then asked, did Chin Chun see that kid? How did she feel? Peacock shook her head. I purposely let Junior Chun see it, but I didn't tell her beforehand. But looking at Junior Chin's face, she didn't feel anything strange, and, Peacock hesitated, and I only felt this when I saw him for the first time. When I saw him again, I didn't feel this kind of feeling. Towards the end, her voice was almost inaudible. The Abbess Jing fan was stunned. She thought for a moment and asked softly, who else did you tell about this? Chin Chun? Or the leader? Peacock was stunned and said shyly, Master, what are you talking about? What's there to talk about? This is the first time I told you. That's good. Abbess Jing fan nodded and then said seriously, Peacock, although the inner disciples of the fragrant cult are not allowed to marry, but if you want to develop in the cult, for example, to sit in my position, then you must keep your chastity. The reason why I let you go out this time is to let you see the real Jianghu. Then I'll tell you all this later. Who would have thought that you would meet your so-called nemesis in just a few months? Nemesis? Peacock was shocked. Master, you're saying that this Ren Xiaoyao actually? The Abish Jing fan nodded. I don't have any experience in this area, but from what you said, it seems to be the same as when your senior Ru Ping met Pong from the Misty School. Back then, your master Jingyi came to me a few times, and I remember it very well. Senior Ru Ping? Peacock was even more surprised. You mean young Ru Ping from the Misty School, right? That's right. Sigh, this child. She went to the Sorrowless Lake and met her nemesis. She couldn't forget him after returning to Lingering Fragrance Peak. Just like what you said, she only had Pong in her heart. Without Pong, the world would collapse. Your senior Ru Ping couldn't stand him, so she reluctantly agreed. Although Pong did not disappoint and became the leader of the Misty School. But, sigh, it's fate that makes fools of people. Love hurts. The Abish Jing fan sighed again and again. She then looked at Peacock lovingly. Peacock, your potential has long surpassed Ru Ping's. Your future is limitless. I hope you can consider it carefully and don't. Before she could finish, Peacock hurriedly said, Master, look at what you're saying. I feel like what you said. Oh, it's not quite the same as what Senior Ru Ping said. That's right. Yang Ru Ping and Pong fell in love at first sight, both of them willing. Yang Ru Ping's love for Pong was unforgettable, but what about Peacock? She really didn't know if she had such feelings for a 15-year-old, Rejuvenation Valley's future son-in-law, and her master had already pinned such a big label on her. Of course she was anxious. The Abish Jing fan looked at Peacock as if she was her own beloved daughter, and stopped Peacock from arguing. Peacock, don't be hasty. I'm saying this for your own good, but it's just my own wishful thinking. I'm not an inflexible person. Your senior Ru Ping was able to let go of Ru Ping years ago. How can I not? Hee. To be honest, I was the one who advised your senior Ru Ping. How can I not understand these things now? But this Ren what? Ren Xiaoyao. Peacock said exasperatedly. Ren Xiaoyao, he's no better than Pong. He's just a normal disciple of the Pill Expanding Hall. The difference between you and him is too big, and his martial arts is terrible. I don't think he's a good match for you. Master. Peacock was speechless. This was just the beginning, and she was already talking about this? The Abish Jing fan ignored her and continued. Of course, Peacock, if you really like him, it doesn't matter if he's Rejuvenation Valley's future son-in-law. You didn't have to go through the ceremony, and you don't have to care if he's just a normal disciple. I'll make the decision for you. Master. Peacock was very touched. She held the Abish Jing fan's hand and said, It's just. Master, thank you for your concern, but it doesn't seem like what you think. How is it not what I think? I've eaten more salt than you've eaten rice. How can I not know? The Abish Jing fan was very sure. Peacock was even more anxious. Master, I really. Forget it. I'll send someone to call Ren Xiaoyao over tomorrow. You can see for yourself. Peacock was a little peeved. All right, the Abish Jing fan smiled. I'm also curious to see what kind of person this Ren Xiaoyao is, to be able to coax the daughter of Rejuvenation Valley, and even our proud Peacock. Oh, forget it. The Abish Jing fan seemed to have thought of something. Let's talk about this later. Ever since your martial aunt Jing Xian mysteriously passed away, our Lingering Fragrance Peak has been in a state of panic and suspicion. Adding your incident out of the blue, and involving someone outside of the sect, it's inevitable that it'll attract other people's attention. It won't do any good to you, Ren Xiaoyao, Tuadan Hall, or Rejuvenation Valley. Let's talk about this in a few years. The kid is still young anyway. Let's just keep him for now. What the? Peacock almost fell over. This was a human, not a fish. But speaking of the deceased martial aunt Jing Xian, Peacock's face was filled with sadness. Yes, Master, martial aunt Jing Xian's martial arts were higher than yours. Why did she pass away so mysteriously? She didn't take in any disciples. Oh, right, Master. It seems that the girls martial aunt Jing Xian brought back from the outside have been accepted into the inner sect? The Abish Jing fan sighed. Yes, when your martial aunt passed away, her face was very peaceful, as if she knew who did it, but she didn't say anything. Sigh. It's because of this that Lingering Fragrance Peak is filled with suspicion. The girls she brought back from the outside aren't very talented, Your martial aunt didn't manage to take them in when she was alive. It's even more difficult after her death. -3. Chapter 580. I know about this. Peacock nodded. I haven't seen that child before, but I heard that she was very stubborn. After Martial Aunt Jing Xian passed away, there was no one to take charge of Xian Bamboo Yard. That child might not have been taken in as Martial Aunt Jing Xian's disciple. There weren't many servants in Xian Bamboo Yard, but they all rolled their eyes at that child. Sigh, I heard from Chen Shun that even Martial Aunt Jing Xian knew about this, but that child just clenched her teeth and didn't say anything. She just stood by Martial Aunt Jing Xian's coffin for 7 days and 7 nights. She's still a child? Nun Jingfan said. That little girl is already 16. She's only a few years younger than you. Haha, you're right, but the first time I saw her was 4 or 5 years ago. She was still a little girl. In the blink of an eye, she's already 16. Time flies. Hearing the disappointment in Peacock's voice, Nun Jingfan nodded in her heart. The inner disciples of Lingering Fragrance Peak were all blessed by the heavens. They had always stayed away from the mortal world and didn't have much contact with worldly affairs. Although they could improve their martial arts, once they reached a certain level, they would fall into a bottleneck. Without experiencing the fickleness of the world and the ways of the world, they wouldn't be able to enter a more profound realm. This bottleneck had stopped countless geniuses in the past thousands of years. As Abbess Jingfan's prized disciple, Peacock could be considered one of the top figures in Lingering Fragrance Peak. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been the one responsible for this trip to Carefree City. Today, to be able to express the sentiment of time is like lightning to a girl whom she had not interacted much with, it already showed that she had some understanding of the true meaning of life. Whether it was successful or not, her relationship with the so-called nemesis of life would be greatly beneficial for Peacock's cultivation. Ren Xiaoyao, in Nun Jingfan's eyes, was just a whetstone for Peacock's mortal mantra. Immediately after, Jingfan Shirtai smiled and said, "Let's not talk about that girl. Since she has already entered the inner sect, even if she doesn't have your martial uncle Jing Xian's personal guidance, she may not have the opportunity to improve her martial arts, but with her status, on this Lingering Fragrance Peak, no one will bully her." Peacock also nodded slightly. While they were talking, there was a rush of footsteps. Abbess Jingfan did not need to turn around to know who it was. Sure enough, there was a cry of surprise. "Master, you've come out?" Was it not Chen Chen's voice? Abbess Jingfan stopped talking to Peacock. She turned around and said, "Sigh, that's right. I just came out, but I only see one disciple here. Master." Chun Shan used her qinggong and came to Master Jingfan's side. She said in a sweet voice, "From what you're saying, it seems that I don't care about you at all. I'm just a little bored and went to Master Qingling's place to take a look. If you don't believe me, you can ask senior sister. I've been waiting here for a long time." After she finished speaking, she grabbed Master Jingfan's arm and shook it. She did not have the kind of temperament that Zhang Xiaohua had when they first met. Master Jingfan was also used to this kind of coquettish behavior. She said with a helpless face, "I haven't finished my sentence, and you're already waiting for me to say so much. What else do you want me to say?" Although her face was helpless, her eyes were also filled with doting. She had watched her 2 disciples grow up since they were young. She had never been separated from them for so long. Although she knew that there was nothing wrong with her little disciple, she still looked at her face and carefully observed her growth in the past few months. "Look at what you're saying." Chen Chen chuckled and said, "I don't dare to talk back to Master. One sentence from Master is worth 10,000 sentences. Oh, right. I forgot to congratulate Master. Congratulations, Master. Your Mortal Heart Sutra must have reached the peak of perfection. You've created a new situation that hasn't been seen in 10,000 years in the fragrance cult." Little talker. Abbess Jingfan scolded and said, "Master only went into a small retreat. How can it reach the peak of perfection like you said? You're used to being flattered outside. Are you trying to fool me when you come back?" Although it was a scolding, there was a slight pride in Abbess Jingfan's eyes. Chen Shun raised her eyes and looked at Peacock, who was looking at her calmly. She smiled and said, "Senior sister just returned to Lingxiang Peak and her power has increased greatly. Master's retreat for several months must have also improved greatly. This is needless to say. This? What kind of logic is this? Abbess Jingfan smiled bitterly and then said, Is it because you're jealous of your senior sister's opportunity? Qin Shen pursed her lips and said, That's right. Master, please be the judge. Senior sister went to Don't Worry City and encountered many stories along the way. She was even intercepted. Although she was injured, the minor nourishing meridian pill had replenished her strength for at least 5 years. Look at your disciple. I went to that godforsaken place, and there was nothing interesting along the way. Before Qinshan finished speaking, Abbess Jingfan shook her head and said, Don't say any more. Qinshan, have you forgotten what your sect master said before? In addition to hard work, the path of cultivation also emphasizes on aptitude and opportunity. If the opportunity is not there, no matter how hard you work, no matter how good your aptitude is, it will not be enough. Qinshan thought about it and said, Master, so senior sister went to Don't Worry City and encountered the Tenryu sect's obstruction. Then she was seriously injured and got the elixir to increase her power. This is her opportunity? Abbess Jingfan nodded seriously and said, Yes, it is. Qinshan rolled his eyes and said, Then Ren Xiaoyao from the Rejuvenation Valley met Nie Qianyu and sent her to the Rejuvenation Valley. Then they held a martial arts competition to find a spouse. Then he came to the fragrance cult with the medicine boy and became an outer disciple of the fragrance cult. Is that also his opportunity? Hearing Qinshan mention Zhang Xiaohua, Abbess Jingfan frowned slightly and said, I just heard your senior sister mention this Ren Xiaoyao. Why do you suddenly mention him? Do you feel that he is different from ordinary people? Different from ordinary people? Qinshan was stunned and said confusedly, No, I just feel that he is tall, and there is nothing strange about it. Don't we also have a lot of young inner sect disciples who look very mature? Compared to them, this Ren Xiaoyao is too ordinary. Jingfan Nun frowned slightly and said, You're right. If Ren Xiaoyao hadn't met the daughter of the Rejuvenation Valley's Valley Master and reached out to save her, this wouldn't have happened. He definitely wouldn't have had the opportunity to enter our fragrant religion. This is the so-called opportunity. Alas. Qinshan sighed deeply and looked at Peacock deeply. Abbess Jingfan's heart trembled and she quickly asked, What's wrong? Unexpectedly, Qinshan said bitterly, Your disciple's martial arts cultivation can't catch up with senior sisters. Now, I can't even see her back. How can your disciple not sigh? You. Abbess Jingfan did not know whether to laugh or cry, but she was relieved. Peacock went out and provoked this unknown Ren Xiaoyao. If Qinshan was also involved with them, then it would be even more chaotic. It was fine as long as it was not these. At this time, Peacock, who had been silent all this time, smiled and said, Junior sister is wrong. Didn't the head of the sect always say that the most important thing in the path of cultivation is to take one step at a time? Only what you can achieve through cultivation is your true power. All shortcuts are not the right path. The power I have gained these few years is not necessarily a blessing or a curse. Qinshan did not agree and said, Even so, seeing senior sister gain so many years of power for free, how can I not be envious? Moreover, since it is not a blessing to gain power for free, why do so many disciples break their heads every time to obtain the right to enter the Valley Orchid Evening Refining? Isn't it because they want to find rare treasures and refine them into elixirs to increase their power? Speaking of this, she seemed to have realized something and slapped her forehead and said, Oh, Master, I am happy to see you, but I forgot. Abbess Jingfan was stunned and asked with a smile, What's wrong? Do you want to ask Master for the chance to enter the Valley Orchid Evening Refining? Speaking of this, she turned to look at Peacock and said, Your senior sister gained so many years of power for free, and when she went to Don't Worry City, her state of mind was not stable. She can't go to the Valley Orchid Evening Refining in a few months. She needs to stabilize her state of mind first and untie the knot in her heart. Moreover, she has already been there last time. She will not fight with you. Unstable state of mind? Not in her heart? Qinshan was confused and asked Peacock, Senior sister, what is going on? Why didn't I hear you mention it? Could it be that Daogang is sad? Peacock blushed and mumbled, not knowing how to explain. Then Qinshan said loudly, Oh, Master, you are interrupting again. listen to me first. After that, without waiting for Abish Jingfan and Peacock's reaction, he continued, just now when I went to Master's Aunt Qinglung's place, I met Master's uncle who sent someone to find her. He said that the disciples who were patrolling the mountain found that the prohibition of the Valley Orchid Evening Refining had loosened, similar to the initial opening of the Valley Orchid Evening Refining. So he gathered all the elders and hall masters to discuss. Because Master is in seclusion, he did not send anyone. Before Master left, she told me to come back, and if Master is able to come out in the near future, I would like to invite Master to Lingxiang Palace to discuss the matter of the Valley Orchid Evening Refining. Qin Shun said all this in one breath and did not breathe in the middle. Fortunately, he had some success in the Mortal Heart Sutra, so he was not out of breath and his face was not red. After she finished, he did not speak again. Abish Jingfan and Peacock also did not speak. For a moment, the whole room was unusually quiet. Chunshin looked at the two of them and said curiously, Master, Senior Sister, I am done. When Peacock heard this, she smiled and said, Haha, so Junior Sister is done. Then we can talk. Haha. Chunshin laughed and said, Of course. Abish Jingfan also smiled and said, Then we will talk. Then, he looked at Peacock and frowned slightly and said, The Valley Orchid Evening Refining opens every 5 years and the prohibition has been fixed for hundreds of years. There are still a few more months before it opens. Could it be that there have been new changes like the prohibition at Jinghai Lake? -3. Chapter 581. Although the Twilight Orchid refinement is not as grand as the refining of lingering fragrance, it is still held once every 5 years. If there is a chance, it is still good to go in and experience it. Hearing this, Qin Shun could not help but look eager to give it a try. Peacock's face was expressionless, but there was obvious envy in her eyes. She said gloomily, The refining of lingering fragrance is held every year. It is nothing new. This time, the disciples have been talking about the Twilight Orchid refinement for a long time. I want to go in and take a look. When Qin Shun heard this, he shouted, Senior Sister, don't fight with me. You've gotten so many benefits for no reason. Moreover, you've gotten an excellent ranking in the refining of lingering fragrance every year. The headmaster has praised you a lot and gave you a lot of medicinal pills and cultivation methods. Peacock said unhappily, The elixirs are useful, but didn't I show you the skills too? You also practice a lot. Hee, who asked us to be Senior Sister? If you don't let me see it, who else can see it? Chen Shun blinked his eyes and said, shamelessly, Forget it, forget it. Master didn't ask me to go anyway. What are you afraid of? I won't fight with you. Although the Twilight Orchid refinement is not too dangerous, there are still many wild beasts inside. There are also many long-lived wild beasts. Although I didn't encounter any wild beasts the last time I went in, it doesn't mean that there are no problems inside. You have to be careful. If others are not afraid, why should I be? It's just a wild beast. Don't you think so, Master? Master Jingfan shook her head. Chen Shun, don't be careless. The wild beasts in the valley are not like the ones you usually see. Not only are there many types, but they are also very fierce. Many of the wild beasts inside have lived for who knows how many years and are human-like. Every time the Twilight Orchid refinement, there are many casualties. Qin Shun said disdainfully, They are all outer disciples and disciples of other halls. How many inner disciples are injured? Seeing that Qin Shun did not mind, Nun Jingfan did not say much. In the eyes of the inner disciples, Twilight Orchid refinement was a simple experience. The fragrant religion was not the same as other sects in Jianghu. They had an immortal array to protect their foundation. Of course, with this array, there were gains and losses. The gains were needless to say. The array had protected the fragrant religion for 10,000 years. But what about the losses? It was also obvious that the inner sect disciples did not have enough experience roaming the Jianghu. Although roaming the Jianghu every 4 years was an opportunity, not every disciple had the opportunity to do so. Therefore, the Orchid Valley that was opened every 5 years was also a place for them to gain experience. Roaming the Jianghu might allow them to gain experience in the ways of the world. As for Twilight Orchid refinement, it could only be used to gain experience in martial arts and survive in the wild. As for comparing notes in martial arts, It was better to mention the Twilight Orchid Refinement. This was a grand event that the Fragrant Religion held every year to assess the martial arts of the inner and outer disciples. The winners would receive corresponding rewards and promotion. This was what Nun Jingfan should be worried about. Seeing that her master did not say anything more, Peacock smiled and said, "Master, since you have already come out of seclusion, the head of the sect must be concerned. There may be many things that need to be discussed in this Orchid Valley. You should also be going to the Palace of Fragrant Religion. If you delay the sect's important matters because of this disciple, we can't afford to take responsibility." Haha. Nun Jingfan laughed and shook her head. She stood up and said, "Master hasn't seen you for several months and wanted to talk more with you. Looking at you, sigh, as the saying goes, the son has grown up and can't be controlled by his mother. It's really not bad." Peacock said shyly, "Master, this disciple just saw that you weren't in a hurry to go to the Palace of Fragrant Religion and kindly reminded you." "What do you mean by that?" Qin Shun did not let go of the arm that was hugging Nun Jingfan and said, "That's right, Master. Then why don't you stay a little longer?" Nun Jingfan pulled her arm away and said, "Seeing that you are safe and sound, Master is relieved. The sect's matters are not big or small. They all need to be taken seriously. Since I have already come out of seclusion, I naturally need to participate. Although it's a little late, I still have to go. Peacock, go back to the quiet room to stabilize your state. Qin Shun, make some preparations. The prohibition of Orchid Valley has loosened. We may be entering the valley soon." Seeing that their master was speaking seriously, the two of them did not dare to delay. They both stood still and solemnly said yes. After Nun Jingfan left, Qin Shun pulled Peacock again and asked curiously, "Senior, what did Master say to you when she came out of seclusion? Why did Master have such a big reaction when I mentioned that Ren Xiaoyao? She gave me a fright just now." Peacock shook her head as if nothing had happened. "How would I know the reason? When you came back, Master had just come out of seclusion. I had just finished talking about the matter of going to Carefree City, and Master had just seen my injuries." That's strange." Qin Shun was even more puzzled. He raised his head and asked, "Oh right, Senior. It's been more than 10 days since we came back to Incense Order. I wonder how that Ren Xiaoyao is doing? Is he like the other disciples of Pill-Digging Hall, planting herbs in a daze?" Piffed. Hearing this, Peacock could not help but laugh and said, "How come I've never seen him in a daze? If he's really like that, what's so fun about him? Why are you still thinking about him?" Speaking of this, she felt guilty for no reason. Qin Shun did not care at all and said, "This kid's looks are average and his martial arts are poor. However, he's not short and doesn't seem to have any strong points. But his eloquence is not bad. When there's time, why don't we drag him to Lingxiang Peak and tell him stories to us?" Peacock was speechless and scolded. "Do you think Lingxiang Peak is easy? He's just a little medicine boy of Pill-Digging Hall. How can he come to Lingxiang Peak and tell you stories?" I'm just saying. Qin Shun stuck out his tongue. Then, he turned to look out of the window and stretched, saying, "The days at Lingxiang Peak are really boring. If only we could be like Ren Xiaoyao said, how good would it be to be able to get rid of evil in the Jianghu?" Peacock shook her head and said, "If that kind of life is good, why would Ren Xiaoyao need to painstakingly design and join our incense order? All right, let's not talk about it anymore. You should also prepare. I'm going to the quiet room to practice." Sigh. Those who prepare, prepare. Those who practice in seclusion. Those who are bored continue to be bored, Chanshin muttered. Those who are farming are still farming. Peacock, who was walking past, felt her heart skip a beat and thought, "Farming? Isn't that Ren Xiaoyao? Why did Qin Shun mention this for no reason? Could it be?" Then, she felt a chill in her heart. Could it be that Qin Shun also has feelings for this Ren Xiaoyao? No way. Didn't Master say that he's my nemesis? Peacock's face heated up as she thought, could it be that what Master said was true? I actually have feelings for a young man I've never met. But this doesn't seem to be the feeling described in the book. What should I do? Sigh, not to mention Peacock's chaotic thoughts and Chen Chen's muttering. Just the fact that Zhang Xiaohua, who was comprehending the Imperial Wind technique on Tianmu Peak, was sneezing nonstop. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua had already finished comprehending the levitation technique. He had also patched up the previous incomplete version of the levitation technique and started cultivating again. Although the levitation technique in the ethereal steps that Zhang Chengyue had given to Zhang Xiaohua a few years ago was lacking, the main framework was still there. It was just that when he was recording it, many details were omitted. Many things that were not easy to record with pen and ink were omitted. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua was revising the general cultivation and could easily do it. Therefore, it did not take long for him to start comprehending and practicing the Imperial Wind technique. Misty School's flight technique was divided into 3 steps. The first step was the levitation technique, which was to lift the body off the ground and float in the air, using external objects to move. This was exactly what martial arts Qigong could mimic. The second step was to float in the air without using any external objects. Instead, he controlled the wind outside to move his body. Of course, the third step was to be able to fly in the air. This was not something Zhang Xiaohua could do. What he had comprehended now was how to control the wind. Speaking of controlling the wind, during the era of immortality, it was not too difficult. It was one of the most basic abilities of all immortal cultivators. At this time, on Timu Peak, although the vitality of heaven and earth was much more than outside, the amount that Zhang Xiaohua could use was very little. Moreover, without the guidance of a master, Zhang Xiaohua was still scratching his head when it came to something as abstract as controlling the wind. Look, under the night sky, in the forest, a crooked figure almost left the tree branch and tried to control the wind, but in a moment of carelessness, he fell with a plop. Sigh, why can't I stay in the air for a long time? Zhang Xiaohua patted the dirt off his, but as he scratched his head, it was not that he could not stabilize his body, but the technique to stabilize his body was recorded in the ethereal steps. He only wanted to abandon martial arts and only use the immortal Tao. Naturally, he did not want to use it. Standing up from the ground, Zhang Xiaohua looked at the full moon in the sky. It was already late. Casting a spell, he entered the ground and went straight to the alchemy room. In the alchemy room, the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace was already placed on the platform. The earth fire was also burning slightly. No herbs were added into the furnace, only to warm it up. Ever since the great guardian deity Zhou Shuming's visit, there were no more irrelevant visitors to Tianmu Peak. Zhang Xiaohua's farming life finally entered a peaceful state. After cultivating the levitation technique, Zhang Xiaohua once again had the idea of refining pills. That's right. Weren't the herbs he obtained from the gambling arena used to refine pills? While alchemy, he could also cultivate. Naturally, he had to take care of both. The 8 trigrams purple gold furnace was an alchemy furnace that could refine high-level pills. The way it was used was different from the alchemy furnace Zhang Xiaohua had used before. Early in the afternoon, Zhang Xiaohua raised the earth fire and slowly warmed up the alchemy furnace. Once the time was right, he would add the herbs into the furnace to refine the pills. This time, Zhang Xiaohua wanted to refine the pill formula that he had obtained long ago, the bone-solidifying pill. Although Zhang Xiaohua had never seen the bone-solidifying pill before, he had seen the small bone-solidifying pill a few times. Those imitations of the incense cult's alchemists could cause the cult's disciples to drool. Presumably, the real bone-solidifying pill would be even more precious. Since Zhang Xiaohua wanted to use the pills to practice, this never-before-refined pill was suitable. -3. Chapter 582. Chu Zhigao thanked Zhang Xiaohua and gave Zhang Xiaohua the pill formulas that he didn't understand. There were a few pill formulas among them, but the bone-solidifying pill was recorded at the very front. Moreover, the herbs used in these pill formulas couldn't be found in the past, even if Zhang Xiaohua was in Rejuvenation Valley. But now, she was teaching the incense cult, and in the pill-expanding hall. This was a place where the great sects of immortal Tao inheritances grew medicinal herbs. Other cultivation methods might have been lost, but there was never a lack of medicinal herbs used for pill refinement. Perhaps some medicinal herbs' medicinal properties were unknown, and even the pill formulas could be lost. But it was undeniable that many ancient medicinal herbs were collected by different disciples, even if they didn't know the names of these medicinal herbs. Perhaps only Zhang Xiaohua's foolish behavior of exchanging medicinal herbs for medicinal pills could make them cover their mouths and laugh secretly while throwing out nameless and worthless medicinal herbs. At least, the medicinal herbs that Zhang Xiaohua used to refine the bone-solidifying pill could be found in the thousands of jade boxes. Yes, she forgot. The three main ingredients used in pill refinement, iron bone grass, fragrant soul wood, and blackwood fruit, were also found in other jade boxes. They just weren't as old as the three ingredients that Qinfeng Xiao, Bai Huan, and the others gave to Zhang Xiaohua. Glancing at the warm pill furnace, Zhang Xiaohua once again probed her divine sense into the furnace. On the inner wall of the pill furnace, there were instructions on how to use it and refine it. There were also simple instructions on pill refinement. These instructions were for the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace. Usually, only one furnace mouth was used for pill refinement, but this pill furnace had 8. Of course, it had to be explained clearly. Zhang Xiaohua looked at it for a long time and gradually understood. The 8 furnace mouths of the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace were called Kuan, Zhan, Li, Dui, Qin, Sun, Jin, and Kan. Moreover, the medicinal herbs also corresponded to these 8 attributes. It was actually similar to Zhang Xiaohua's 5 elements division. According to the instructions of the medicinal herbs in the pill furnace, Zhang Xiaohua also roughly understood that Qin and Dui should correspond to gold, Zhan and Sun should correspond to wood, Kuan and Jin should correspond to earth, Kan was water, and Li was fire. Looking at the medicinal herbs' 5 elements division, it was not a whim. Early in the ancient times, there were ancestors who discovered and classified them. It was just that I did not receive the inheritance. This 8 trigrams division, presumably, is also a branch of it. Zhang Xiaohua secretly pondered, slowly entering into the routine homework at night. In fact, thinking about it, it was normal. In the ancient times, immortals flourished and affected all things in the mortal world. Although Zhang Xiaohua learned the 5 elements division from Qi Huang was a branch of alchemy. If there were no traces of predecessors, then it would be strange. When she woke up the next day, Zhang Xiaohua finished her work in the medicine field and went to a remote place in the medicine field. This was the place where she secretly watered the spring water that contained vitality. Releasing her divine sense, she carefully observed the seeds on the ground. These seeds that Zhang Xiaohua specially watered contained far more vitality than others. However, these seeds still did not have any movement. While she was looking, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly frowned. She looked back with her divine sense. 10 feet away, behind a big tree, Zhou Shuming, who had disappeared for a few days, quietly appeared there again. Alas, he's really like a fly. Staring at me makes me feel uncomfortable. Zhang Xiaohua secretly shook her head and then left the medicine field. At this time, another blatant fly also stuck out its head and shouted, "Junior Brother Ren, good morning." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and waved her hand. "Senior Brother Bai, good morning too. Today is half an hour earlier than usual." Bai Huan laughed and said, "I just woke up because I wanted to pee. When the sun comes out later, I still need to take a nap. I'm going to faint." Zhang Xiaohua almost fell down. She quickly said, "Senior Brother Bai, you can go to the bathroom yourself. I also need to go back to sleep." After returning to the cave, Zhang Xiaohua thought for a moment and did not dare to be careless. She set up a restriction at the entrance of the cave and then escaped into the alchemy room. At this time, the alchemy room was already steaming hot. Although the alchemy furnace was not being refined, Zhang Xiaohua did not use any incantation to restrict the energy of the earth fire, so it was stuffy. On the white jade table, there were more than 10 jade boxes. They were the herbs that Zhang Xiaohua had picked out earlier to refine the bone-solidifying pill. Looking at the alchemy furnace that had been warmed, Zhang Xiaohua took out a cattail hassock and threw it in front of the furnace. Then she sat cross-legged and regulated the vital energy in her body. The bone-solidifying pill was the same as the meridian-nourishing pill, but it was a low-level pill. Zhang Xiaohua was basically confident. However, this was the first time she used the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace, so she had to be careful. After a while, Zhang Xiaohua let out a light breath. She made an incantation with both hands and hit the earth fire and the alchemy furnace. With a soft sound, The alchemy furnace seemed to have shrunk a little, and the burning earth fire seemed to have become fiercer. However, because of the incantation, the temperature in the alchemy room gradually dropped. After a long while, Zhang Xiaohua made an incantation with her left hand and pointed her index finger at the mouth of the Qian furnace. The sealed mouth of the furnace rotated and silently opened, revealing the array within. At this moment, there was no light red, true samadhi fire within the array. After all, it was only a low-level pill and did not require the refinement of true fire. When the furnace opened, Zhang Xiaohua did not hesitate. She waved her right hand and a jade box appeared on the table, revealing the 40-year-old iron bone grass. Then, under Zhang Xiaohua's control, the iron bone grass flew into the furnace. Once the iron bone grass was thrown in, a cloud of ash immediately flew up and turned into a ball of boiling medicinal liquid. Zhang Xiaohua carefully observed with her divine sense. Only when she did not find anything strange did she relax. She continued to incantation with the incantation and pointed her left index finger again. The mouth of the furnace rotated and closed. The metal attribute iron bone grass was slowly refined in the furnace. After that, with the experience of the first time, Zhang Xiaohua unhurriedly threw the water attribute fragrant soulwood and the wood attribute blackwood fruit into the furnace and the vibration furnace, respectively. Then, according to her own understanding, she threw the other 10 ingredients into the different alchemy furnaces. Of course, Zhang Xiaohua's understanding of the 5 elements of the herbs was just at the beginning stage. She did not have a complete understanding of the attributes of the herbs and could only roughly divide them. Of course, if she divided them correctly, it would naturally be beneficial to the refinement of the herbs. Even if she divided them incorrectly, there would be no fatal consequences. It was precisely because of this that Zhang Xiaohua was at ease and dared to try it out. The 8 trigrams purple gold furnace had this kind of advantage. It could separate the different attributes of the herbs into different formations to refine their essences. If it was used in the previous alchemy furnaces, it would have to be refined separately. Obviously, it could save a large amount of time. When refining low-level and basic alchemy pills, there might not be any advantages. Only when refining high-level alchemy pills in the future, where the refinement of the herbs required a long time, would the benefits of this 8 trigrams purple gold furnace could be seen. After waiting for the various herbs to be thrown into the alchemy furnace, Zhang Xiaohua clapped her hands and immersed her divine sense into the alchemy furnace. Using the previous method of controlling the alchemy furnace, she carefully looked at the various medicinal liquids. Only when she felt that everything was normal did she withdraw her divine sense. Although the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace could refine high-level alchemy pills, the time needed to refine the impurities couldn't be reduced. Zhang Xiaohua could only carry out the next step of liquefying and producing the alchemy pills tomorrow. Sitting cross-legged in front of the alchemy furnace, Zhang Xiaohua first closed her eyes to comprehend the heavenly Tao for a while. When it was about noon, she put away the praying mat and practiced the imperial wind technique in the alchemy room. Fortunately, the alchemy room was quite large. Although the alchemy furnace in the center was huge, the other places were enough for Zhang Xiaohua to move around freely. After practicing for a long time, Zhang Xiaohua gradually gained some insights. The imperial wind technique, described in the jade slip, roughly described how to use the zhenqi in the body to communicate with the vitality between heaven and earth, and then control the cool breeze. However, there was still an old problem. The vitality in the alchemy room was lacking. Just using zhenqi to communicate with the vitality between heaven and earth was impossible. So how could she control the cool breeze? Zhang Xiaohua stood there thinking for a long time. This problem existed in all of her magic cultivation. Even the newly refined dragon binding ring was the same. She had zhenqi in her body, but this zhenqi wasn't endless. Even if she wholeheartedly cultivated and grew a little every day, in comparison to the amount of vitality needed to use magic, it was like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. It wasn't of any help at all. But what could Zhang Xiaohua do? He could only rely on the crouching ox stone in the money pouch. Only by absorbing the vitality in the stone could she use these immortal magic. The levitation technique was the foundation of the flying technique. It didn't use a lot of vitality between heaven and earth. Even so, Zhang Xiaohua could only use the levitation technique in the past. He didn't have a high altitude from the ground. Only later on, when his level of qi cultivation was high, could he barely use the levitation technique. Of course, his levitation technique was mostly imitating the qigong of other martial arts masters. He used the ethereal steps technique to reduce the consumption of vitality between heaven and earth. Finding the root of the problem, Zhang Xiaohua's mouth revealed a self-deprecating smile. People of the immortal path pay attention to communicating with heaven and earth. I, on the other hand, can't obtain any benefits from heaven and earth. I can only rely on myself to use my zhenqi to use magic. It seems that in this world, only martial arts is the true protagonist. Although she had such thoughts in her heart, the absolute power of the spell also moved Zhang Xiaohua. How could she settle for the next best thing? Luckily, when Zhang Xiaohua was practicing the levitation technique previously, she already had some shallow experience. Now, it could be used as a reference. Following that, after an afternoon of practice, she was finally able to float and ride the wind a little. Just that, the way Zhang Xiaohua was waving her hands and legs, it was as if she wanted to step on something. Sigh, a habit formed over several years is not something that can be changed in a short period of time. Perhaps only when I truly become a qi practitioner in the future will I be able to fly with the wind. Just as Zhang Xiaohua was flying crookedly in the air, she suddenly had a thought. She made a hand seal and immediately returned to the cave. She heard someone shouting outside, Junior Brother Ren, Junior Brother Ren, -3. Chapter 583. At this time, the sun was already setting. Zhang Xiaohua's cave was facing the southeast, so it was already dark. Without releasing his divine sense, Zhang Xiaohua could tell that the person calling him outside the cave was Senior Brother Bai Huan. Zhang Xiaohua was very surprised. Usually, Bai Huan would only call him in the morning when there was something important. He rarely came in the afternoon. Not to mention that there was nothing important, Bai Huan was lazy. At this time, he was most likely in a daze under the tree, waiting for his big dream at night. Zhang Xiaohua rubbed his eyes and walked out of the cave with an impatient face. He asked, Senior Brother Bai, it's already late. Is there anything in the medicinal field? Although Bai Huan was senior brother and had been at Tianmu Peak for a long time, he was much older than Zhang Xiaohua. However, Bai Huan's expression at this time was as if Zhang Xiaohua was his senior brother. He guessed Zhang Xiaohua's thoughts and smiled apologetically. Junior Brother Ren, if there's nothing important, how would I dare to disturb your rest? When did I come here usually? Zhang Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, From what Senior Brother Bai said, it seems that I don't welcome you. I just think that it's already late. What can happen in the medicinal field? Bai Huan looked around and moved closer to her. She said mysteriously, How is this about the herbal field? Only the gods know when those bear seeds will germinate. I came to find Junior Brother Ren because I have something important to tell you. Seeing Bai Huan's expression, Zhang Xiaohua was amused and asked tactfully, Oh, then I'm all ears. I've been at Tianmu Peak for a long time and haven't encountered anything important. Bai Huan was very satisfied and said, Just now, Head Manager Chun sent someone to deliver a letter. He said that Tianmu Peak is hosting an important guest tonight. Well, Head Manager Chun specially said that it's the person you want to see, so I specially. Before Bai Huan could finish her words, Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. His voice trembled a little as he said anxiously, What? The person I want to see the most? My second. Before she could finish the word brother, she felt that something was wrong. She had never told Chun Fengxiao the real reason why she came to preach the incense order. Even Yang Yao didn't know. How could he find her second brother? Moreover, Chen Fengxiao was just a small steward of Tianmu Peak's Pill Expansion Hall. How could he have such great abilities? Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua immediately shut her mouth and swallowed the rest of her words. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua beaming with joy, Bai Huan was also surprised. She said, Oh, Junior Brother Ren, what are you two for? How did you know he was coming? Him? Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly and said, Who is this him? How did you know it was the person I wanted to see the most? Seeing this, Bai Huan shook her head and said, Of course I know who this him is, But whether he is the person you want to see the most, I don't know. This is just Headmaster Chin's order. Oh, Zhang Xiaohua nodded and asked, then who is him? Bai Huan waved her hand and said, Junior Brother Ren, it's already late. I heard from Headmaster Chen that he will come to Tianmu Peak before the banquet. Why don't we go down the mountain first? When the time comes, you will know. Since Headmaster Chen said he is the person you want to see the most, then he must be the person you want to see the most. If I tell you now, won't it be less of a surprise? This, Zhang Xiaohua was a little helpless and hesitant. Yang Yao? The hall master of Pill Expansion Hall? Peacock? Qin? Oh, maybe he was strong? That was not very likely. Why would she want to see them? In the whole fragrance cult, only Zhang Xiaohu on Shixin Peak was the person she wanted to see the most. She did not want to see the others even if she wanted to. Well, just one more look. If it was yesterday, Zhang Xiaohua would have gone down the mountain with Bai Huan without hesitation. But now, in the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace in the alchemy room, she had just put in the herbs. Although it was just quenching liquid, even if she did not pay attention to it, she would still have some confidence. After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and said, Senior Brother Bai, this? Can we not go down the mountain? Not going down the mountain? Bai Huan was also obviously stunned, as if she did not expect Zhang Xiaohua to answer like this. She asked, Junior Brother Ren, why don't you go down the mountain? What's the point of staying on this lonely mountain top? Moreover, Headmaster Chen specially asked me to call you because he is the person you want to see the most. Alas, yes, there was really no good reason why she did not go down the mountain. After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua nodded slightly and said, in that case, Senior Brother Bai, please wait for a while. I will go to the cave to tidy up. Tidy up? Bai Huan opened his mouth wide, but immediately smiled and said, Junior Brother Ren, don't think wrongly. Maybe Headmaster Chen guessed wrong. Oh no, maybe Junior Brother Ren thought wrong. The person at the foot of the mountain may not be the person you think. What is this all about? Zhang Xiaohua laughed at herself and turned back to the cave. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua had turned back, Bai Huan did not follow. Previously, Chun Fengxiao had specially instructed that it was best not to disturb Zhang Xiaohua's daily life. Even this cave should not be entered if possible. Bai Huan was very good at this and was able to firmly carry out the headmaster's instructions. He was not willing to take even half a step closer to this cave. Zhang Xiaohua returned to the cave and used her divine senses to look at Bai Huan. Seeing that he did not move, she felt relieved and escaped into the pill room. She carefully checked the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace again and injected some incantations into the furnace. Only then was she slightly relieved and escaped from the pill room. Then, she pretended to tidy up her clothes and quickly walked out of the cave. Outside the cave, Bai Huan originally wanted to see a brightly dressed Zhang Xiaohua and make a joke of him. But when he saw that Zhang Xiaohua's clothes were still the same, which was far from what he had imagined, he could not help but feel secretly disappointed. However, he did not dare to ask more and led Zhang Xiaohua down the mountain path to the top of Timu Peak. Although Bai Huan did not know lightness skill and Zhang Xiaohua only followed him down on foot, they were going down the mountain after all, and their speed was extremely fast. In less than half an hour, they had already reached the mountainside. At this moment, the sun had completely set behind the mountain, leaving only a faint light in the western sky. It was the time when darkness was coming. However, as soon as Zhang Xiaohua and Bai Huan turned a corner of the mountain, the sharp-eyed Zhang Xiaohua saw from afar that there was a bright red area in front of the courtyard that was gradually fading into the darkness on the mountainside. Zhang Xiaohua was very surprised. If his divine senses were not suppressed now, he would have released them to observe carefully. But now, he could only speed up his pace. When he got closer, he saw clearly that there were several red cloths with huge black words on them. The words were, warmly welcome the elite disciples of Wuming Hall to come and give guidance. Warmly welcome the pride of Tuoping Hall to return to his mother's arms. Warmly welcome the pride of Tuoping Hall to return to his mother's arms. You will always be the hero in our hearts. We hope you can come back often. In front of the courtyard, there were dozens of young medical apprentices, all holding red garlands in their hands and standing in a neat line. It was spring all year round in the Shangxiang cult, but now it was dusk. Tianmu Peak was also very high, and the peak of the mountainside had been bitterly cold. Those young medical apprentices were dressed very brightly, but they were also very thin. When the mountain wind blew, it was also very cold, and the mouth of the medical apprentices trembled slightly. Zhang Xiaohua was very surprised. He turned his head and asked, This posture seems to be welcoming him. Why? Is it Hall Master? However, before Bai Huan answered, Zhang Xiaohua's mind flashed. He patted his forehead with his hand and said with a smile, I was wondering who it was. It turned out to be him. Bai Huan also clapped her hands and said, Junior brother Rin is really smart. You guessed it at once. Zhang Xiaohua shook his head and said, If I saw the pride of Wuming Hall, outer core disciples, and Tuoping Hall, I would be stupid if I still couldn't think of him. However, speaking of this, the corners of his mouth twitched a few times. Well, he naturally had a plan in mind who this person was. But what was this person called? To be honest, this name had appeared in Zhang Xiaohua's ears several times. Unfortunately, he didn't take note of it seriously. Now that he thought about it, he had no impression of it at all. So Zhang Xiaohua had to turn around and pointed to the young medical apprentices who were shivering in the mountain wind, and said, Although this person is the pride of our Tuoping Hall, and is the only one who passed the examination and became an outer core disciple in these years, it seems that we don't need such an amazing formation. Look at these medical apprentices, they are all about 10 years old. The mountain wind here is very strong, and it's not good for them to catch cold. Bai Huan looked at those medical apprentices and said awkwardly, These medical apprentices are all admirers of him. They spontaneously organized it, and they are all willing to do it. Although this sentence was said with a stammer, the words spontaneously and willingly were very clear. With a hum, Zhang Xiaohua snorted from his nose. Looking at the uniform garlands, clothes, and neat formation in the hands of the medical apprentices, if they spontaneously organized it, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't figure it out even if he thought with his heel. While talking, they didn't stop and soon came to the front of the medical apprentices. Looking at the young faces of the medical apprentices and some snot coming out of their noses, Zhang Xiaohua felt a little distressed for no reason. He reached out to touch the face of a medical apprentice next to him, which was really cold. Zhang Xiaohua was about to speak when she heard a commotion from inside the door. A group of people, who were also very well dressed, walked out of the door. Zhang Xiaohua looked up. Wasn't it Headmaster Qin Fengxiao and Wu Dalong of Wuzhou Ruins in the lead? Yes, behind them were the 10 great Vajras and the 6 great Arhats, who looked very refined. Once Qin Fengxiao walked out of the courtyard, he saw Zhang Xiaohua. However, when he saw Zhang Xiaohua's clothes, he frowned slightly and walked over quickly. He said, Oh, Brother Ren, why are you still wearing this? Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, Headmaster Qin, you are good at beating around the bush. You also didn't let senior brother Bai say who he was, so how would I know to change clothes? Moreover, I am poor, so how would I have new clothes to welcome distinguished guests? Qin Fengxiao slapped his forehead. Yes, it's my fault. All right, Bai Huan, lead junior brother Ren to the inner courtyard and see if there are any suitable clothes for him to change into. Before Qin Fengxiao could finish his sentence, someone shouted, Look, the pride of Pill Expanding Hall is back. When Qin Fengxiao heard this, he hurriedly turned around. He couldn't be bothered to say anything to Zhang Xiaohua. He waved his hand and said, Little ones, fire the firecrackers and play music to welcome our idol. In an instant, a few groups of medicine boys with musical instruments rushed out from the door and started to play music. The previous medicine boy also held a garland and raised it above his head, waving it while shouting, Welcome, welcome, a warm welcome. At this moment, the 2 people in the distance were already close. Zhang Xiaohua didn't need to look back. When her divine sense swept past them, she had an expression of not knowing whether to laugh or cry. -3. Chapter 584. There were 2 people coming from afar. The one leading the way was Yang Yao, the one who led Zhang Xiaohua into the fragrance cult. The one walking behind Yang Yao was the legendary genius from the Rejuvenation Valley. Well, the little medicine boy of the Rejuvenation Valley was now an outer disciple of the Wuming Hall of the fragrance cult. As for his name, Zhang Xiaohua could not remember it clearly. But the face in her divine sense, Zhang Xiaohua had seen it before. Wasn't he the patrolling disciple who cheated Zhang Xiaohua of the dragon scale fruit on the first day of Zhang Xiaohua's arrival in the fragrance cult? For a moment, Zhang Xiaohua felt a chill in her heart. What kind of quality was this? The pride of the pill-expanding hall? How could he snatch the herb from a medicine boy? Not to mention other things. Just this point alone made Zhang Xiaohua look down on him. Until now, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly understood. No wonder she felt strange at that time. The dragon scale fruit was rare. How could a patrolling disciple of the Wuming Hall know about it? If it was him, naturally, it would not be strange. Not to mention his character, this medicine boy of the pill-expanding hall still had the basic professional quality. When Bai Huan heard Chun Fengxiao ask him to take Zhang Xiaohua to the inner hall to find clothes, he was unhappy at first. Although he didn't say anything, he didn't move at all. He just stood there and stretched his neck, his eyes full of stars, and said in a low voice, "Oh, this senior brother Lu is really a master of martial arts. You see, I haven't seen him for several years, but he still looks the same as before. Oh, no, look at his eyes like lightning, and his steps like a tiger or a dragon. He really has the demeanor of a master. Even Headmaster Chun can't compare to him, even Master Qin Fengxiao." When Zhang Xiaohua heard the words, senior brother Lu, she immediately thought of the Lu Lihong mentioned by Yang Yao. Then she covered her mouth and laughed. Although Lu Lihong and Yang Yao were close, they were still 10 feet away. Moreover, it was dusk. It was the most difficult to see people clearly. Zhang Xiaohua's ears and eyes were sharp, but she could only see roughly. How could Bai Huan see clearly? So Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, "So senior brother Bai admires senior brother Lu so much?" Bai Huan ignored him and only looked from afar and said, "It's not just me. Senior brother Lu is simply the idol of all the disciples of Tianmu Peak. As long as senior brother Lu is mentioned, even Headmaster Chen is full of praise. Oh, by the way, don't be fooled by Headmaster Chen's extreme dislike of the disciples of Rejuvenation Valley. Senior brother Lu is definitely an exception. Junior brother Ren, when you see senior brother Lu later, you have to get close to him. He is the pride of your Rejuvenation Valley, a genius of hundreds of years." When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she secretly curled her lips and thought, senior brother Lu's lightness skill is only slightly better than great King Kong Zhou Shuming. How can he be called a master? Not to mention a genius. He even snatched my dragon scale fruit, and he still wants me to get close to him? However, he immediately had a good impression of Qin Fengxiao. Perhaps Qin Fengxiao took what he said about becoming an outer disciple seriously. When he saw Lu Lihong coming over, Qin Fengxiao hurriedly called him over. Presumably, Qin Fengxiao wanted Lu Lihong to ask more questions about this disciple of the Pill-Sprouting Hall who had successfully broken through the Pill-Sprouting Hall in the past, so that Lu Lihong would have more confidence. But, did she want to be an outer disciple? Did she want to patrol the mountain for the fragrance cult? Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and said to Bai Huan, who was immersed in admiration of his idol, "Senior brother Bai, you go ahead. I will find the inner hall myself." When Bai Huan heard this, he was overjoyed and said, "Good, good. This is what you said. Then I will go and welcome senior brother Lu first. You quickly change into new clothes and come over to show your nose." After that, he walked away without asking Zhang Xiaohua if she knew where the inner hall was, or pointing the direction to the inner hall for Zhang Xiaohua. Seeing Bai Huan leave in a hurry, Zhang Xiaohua touched his nose and turned to enter the courtyard. Anyway, he didn't intend to change his clothes. Why would he look for the inner hall? At this time, the courtyard was empty. There was no one, but the courtyard was different from usual. Although it was empty, it didn't mean that there was nothing. The courtyard, which was usually empty, had been filled with rows and rows of small stools, which were very neat. Zhang Xiaohua was surprised. Looking up again, at the end of the courtyard in the hall, there was a slightly high platform. There were several tables and several chairs on the high platform. The high platform was brightly lit, which was reflected on the long red cloth above. On the cloth, there was a row of handsome characters, which was former core of the Pill-Expanding Hall, today elite of the Wuming Hall, Lu Lihong's report on his past excellent deeds. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua touched his nose again. Alas, he had touched his nose countless times in a short while. He thought to himself, could it be that you really can't judge a book by its cover? Zhang Xiaohua unconsciously had a trace of expectation in his heart. Zhang Xiaohua looked left and right. His body didn't seem to be moving at all. Instead, he floated up like a breeze and flew straight to a dark corner. It was the new imperial wind technique. Unfortunately, he had only flown one zhang and was less than 3 feet above the ground when his body staggered. He had already lost the vigor of the imperial wind technique and fell down like a rock. Cough, cough. Zhang Xiaohua looked around. Fortunately, there was no one around. He didn't embarrass himself. He cast a spell and escaped to a corner. Then, he jumped onto the wall and looked at the lively scene outside. Not far away, Yang Yao and Lu Lihong had already walked together with Chun Fengxiao and Wu Zhoushu's group. Qin Fengxiao raised his hands with an enthusiastic look. When they got closer, he immediately cupped his hands together and said, Tianmu Peak's Pill Opening Hall's Grass Division disciple Chun Fengxiao welcomes the famous Wu Ming Hall's outstanding outer disciple Lu Lihong, junior brother Lu Lihong. Yang Yao was walking in front of Lu Lihong and was about to return the greeting. However, after hearing Chun Fengxiao's words, he immediately moved to the side and let Lu Lihong pass. Lu Lihong, on the other hand, acted like an expert. He took a step forward and cupped his hands together. He said humbly, Senior Brother Qin, you're too kind. Even though we're not from the same place, weren't we all disciples of the Pill Opening Hall back then? What outer disciples? What outstanding disciples? It's just a fleeting cloud. Only our brotherhood is real. Qin Fengxiao gave him a thumbs up and said, Junior Brother Lu is indeed extraordinary. Even at this point, you still haven't forgotten your past. I'm truly impressed. Then, Qin Fengxiao took a step to the side and bowed towards Yang Yao. Martial Uncle Yang, you've worked hard to bring Junior Brother Lu here. You've added quite a bit of glory to our Tianmu Peak. At the same time, Wu Zhoushu also walked in front of Lu Lihong with a spring breeze smile. He cupped his hands together and greeted Lu Lihong. Yang Yao, on the other hand, was still smiling. He said to Qin Fengxiao, Sai, I have a hard life. Back then, I brought you back to the fragrant religion. In the blink of an eye, dozens of years have passed. Look at your achievements today, then look at me. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed. Qin Feng smiled warmly as he patted Yang Yao's shoulder and said, Martial Uncle Yang is a guiding sign for the fragrant religion. I don't know how many disciples have joined the fragrant religion under your guidance. This contribution of yours is something I admire greatly, but no matter how hard I try, I will never be able to learn from you. Then, he took Yang Yao's hand and said affectionately, I heard that the last time Martial Uncle left the valley was your last time. In the future, you can enjoy your life in the fragrant religion. I wonder what arrangements Martial Uncle has. Our Tianmu Peak lacks a person of virtue and prestige like Martial Uncle. If Martial Uncle is willing, why don't you come to my Tianmu Peak? I'll immediately let Martial Uncle take over my position. Yang Yao waved his hand. No, no, you and Martial Nephew Lu are both heroes. How can I compare to you? My old bones should just stay in the White Mountain Peak and bask in the sun. Sai, even if I wanted to come to Tianmu Peak, would the Hall Master be willing to replace you? Qin Fengxiao smiled like a flower and shook Yang Yao's hand. You are the Hall Master's treasure. How could he be willing to put you so far away? You must be in a more important place in the hall. Yang Yao chuckled and continued to say some irrelevant things. On the side, Wu Zhoushu, who had finished exchanging greetings, also walked over and continued to exchange greetings with Yang Yao. The other 16 men surrounded Lu Lihong like stars surrounding the moon, asking all sorts of questions at once. Only not far behind them, a group of young medicine apprentices were working hard to beat the gongs and drums, swaying the garland, their voices somewhat hoarse. Welcome, welcome, warm welcome. The sound reverberated through the mountainside of Tianmu Peak. After a while, the two groups of people finished exchanging greetings. Some of the pill-expanding hall disciples who had been admiring them for a long time also seemed to be eager to try. Lu Lihong smiled and said to Qin Fengxiao, The pill-expanding hall is still the best. This is my home. Every time I come back, I feel the warmth of family. However, the brothers are really too enthusiastic. I'm afraid. Chen Fengxiao obviously knew what he meant. He turned around and raised his hand. Fellow junior brothers, don't be anxious. It's windy and cold here. Let junior brother Lu enter the courtyard first. In a while, it will be junior brother Lu's first report. Let's go with him and reminisce about the years when he fought in the pill expanding hall. After this, let's have a good exchange with junior brother Lu and learn from him. In the future, junior brother Lu will be our guiding light. Chen Fengxiao said a lot. Only then did the disciples quiet down and make a path. Lu Lihong had a smile on his face as he walked in front of the crowd, waving his hand as he walked. Chen Fengxiao and Wu Zhoushu followed behind him, clapping with a smile on their faces. Yang Yao walked behind Chen Fengxiao and the others, accompanied by Zhou Shuming and the others. The disciples on both sides of the aisle cheered and stretched out their hands, wanting to get closer to the former elite of the pill repository hall. The medicine boys behind the disciples were still tirelessly waving their garlands and drums, their little faces full of excitement. Their eyes were peeking through the gaps between the disciples, hoping to see something. Unfortunately, they could not see anything. All they could see was a group of messy backs. -3. Chapter 585. Everyone entered the courtyard and saw a group of disciples sitting on small stools that had been neatly arranged in the courtyard. The medicine boys who were playing music to welcome them also followed in and stood behind the disciples. Zhang Xiaohua took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention and quietly slipped down the wall and sat behind the medicine boys. Lu Lihong sat in the middle of the high platform in the yard, accompanied by Chen Fengxiao and Wu Zhoushu. Yang Yao and a dozen other people sat slightly behind him. When everyone was seated, Chen Fengxiao picked up a teacup and invited Lu Lihong to drink. He then said to the disciples below the stage, "Fellow junior brothers, I believe you all know that the person on the stage is the pride of our pill repository hall. He is also an outstanding disciple of the Wuming Hall, junior brother Lu Lihong. I don't need to go into details about his experience. The most well-known thing is that as a disciple of the grass division of our pill repository hall, he passed the outer disciple assessment and successfully entered the Wuming Hall. He became an elite compound disciple that was highly valued by the Wuming Hall. I know that you have admired junior brother Lu for a long time, so you united with Wu Dalong of the pill department to invite junior brother Lu. You all know that junior brother Lu is very busy in Wuming Hall. He not only has to shoulder his own responsibilities in Wuming Hall, but also some tasks that other disciples can't complete. That is to use his experience as a disciple of Pill Expanding Hall to share the responsibilities of herbs and elixirs. Therefore, junior brother Lu can take time out of his busy schedule to come to Tiemu Peak and guide the work of the grass department and pill department of our Pill Expanding Hall. For this, I would like to express our deep gratitude on behalf of everyone. Well, let's give the time to our long-awaited junior brother Lu to talk about his growth experience in Pill Expanding Hall and his struggle in Wuming Hall. Before Chen Fengxiao's voice died away, there was a thunderous applause from below the platform. Lu Lihong stood up and modestly said, "Senior brother Chen is too serious. I don't have much experience, only some thoughts that I want to share with everyone. This is something that can be replicated. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, or maybe a few years later, one of the juniors here will pass the examination and walk beside me." As he spoke, he turned his head to look at Chen Fengxiao and said, "Actually, to be honest, you have a very good template beside you. As far as I know, senior brother Chen also fought like me in the past. It's just that senior brother Chen wasn't as lucky as me. As for me, I just passed by luck." Chen Fengxiao immediately waved his hand and said, "Don't. A defeated general doesn't need to be brave. If what junior martial brother Lu said is true, many of us here can learn from him. For example, Wu Dalong, junior martial brother Zhou, and the others." When Wu Zhoushu and the others heard this, they also nodded with a smile. Lu Lihong saw this and smiled. "Yes, that's right. Actually, there are things in this world that are difficult and easy. If you do it, the difficulties will be easy. If you don't do it, the difficulties will be difficult. Junior martial brother isn't talented, but I'm willing to combine the insights of the past 10 years with these philosophies to share with everyone." With that, Lu Lihong continued to speak with assurance on the high platform. He truly had the bearing of a grandmaster. Zhang Xiaohua hid behind many apprentices and didn't release her divine sense. She just closed her eyes and listened. Although Lu Lihong's words were very right, and some of them even touched Zhang Xiaohua's heart, she just couldn't listen. It was like a very funny voice. Every time she heard it, it was very pleasant to listen to. Of course, Lu Lihong's sanctimonious patrolling appearance would appear in Zhang Xiaohua's mind. Tisk involuntarily, Zhang Xiaohua muttered, "What you say can't compare to what you say. How can you convince me?" In fact, the most important thing was that everyone in the Pill Tower Hall described Lu Lihong as a rare genius in hundreds of years. Not only was he proficient in medicinal herbs and pills, he was also proficient in martial arts. However, in Zhang Xiaohua's eyes, this was just a child's play. That day, Lu Lihong swindled the dragon scale fruit and used his qinggong to leave. Zhang Xiaohua was secretly surprised in her heart that this patrolling disciple's qinggong was so poor. Now that she thought about it, qinggong required internal strength. Although Lu Lihong was talented, his internal strength cultivation was half a beat slower than others. Therefore, in terms of qinggong, he was very lacking. Since this was the case, how could Zhang Xiaohua take him seriously? Then how could she take his words to heart? Of course, there was another point. Although Zhang Xiaohua acted in a low-key manner, she was after all an 18-year-old young man. Deep in her heart, there was a kind of pride. She saw that the person in front of her was obviously inferior to her, but received much more praise than she did. She could pinch him to death with one finger, but she could not show it. It was like casting pearls before swine. Naturally, she had a feeling of injustice. Isn't it just because you don't have a recommendation? If the disciples of the Pill Tower Hall knew my methods, how could you have a place? Haha. It seemed that even Qi practitioners of the celestial way could not help but have the resentment of man fights for a breath. Buddha receives a stick of incense. However, Zhang Xiaohua forgot that if he used his methods, not only would the Pill Tower Hall be shocked, but the whole incense cult would be shocked as well. Yes, the whole Jianghu would be shocked. Did he dare to show off? At this time, Lu Lihong on the stage said a few words, "Refining pills? You just need to calm your mind." Zhang Xiaohua slapped her forehead and jumped up from the ground. "Oh no, why am I wasting time here with them? It's just a so-called report. It's not like I want to see them. My furnace of bone condensation pills is more important. Who wants to listen to his nagging? Oh, right, how can this guy refine pills? Didn't they say that grass sect disciples can't lend out their pill rooms?" However, in a hurry, Zhang Xiaohua did not have time to think carefully. She released her divine sense. Seeing that no one was paying attention to her, she made a hand seal and directly escaped. She did not show her head and directly went to the pill room at the top of the mountain. Zhang Xiaohua's cultivation of the imperial wind technique was not good, but she was very good at escaping through the earth. Not long after, she returned to the pill room. The first thing she did when she entered the pill room was to use her divine sense to explore the pill furnaces. She saw that the 10 or so medicinal liquids in the 8 formations were slowly rotating, and from time to time, impurities like flying ash would be extracted. Only then did Zhang Xiaohua feel relieved. When Zhang Xiaohua sat down, she was slightly amused. Although the bone condensation pill was precious, it was still a low-level pill. She had successfully refined the meridian soothing pill the first time. Although this was the first time she had used the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace, it had been refined and was different from the one in Rejuvenation Valley. If there was a connection between her mind and blood, there would not be too big of a difference. Her worries were a bit unnecessary. Since there were no problems with the bone condensation pill, Zhang Xiaohua was in no hurry to return to the mountainside. Although Lu Lihong's report was good, it did not interest Zhang Xiaohua in the slightest. There was no reason for her to waste her time there. Zhang Xiaohua made a hand seal and floated up. Unexpectedly, she was cultivating the imperial wind technique in the pill room again. After an unknown amount of time, she gradually made some progress with the imperial wind technique. Zhang Xiaohua landed on the ground to rest for a while. However, she immediately thought of the banquet at the mountainside and knew something was wrong. She turned around and left. Sure enough, when Zhang Xiaohua arrived at the entrance of the courtyard, the high platform had been demolished. The stools on the ground were long gone. Under the bright lights, There were more than 10 square tables. Many delicacies had already been placed on the tables. The disciples were all eating and drinking. The young medicine apprentices, who looked like they had worked the hardest, were nowhere to be seen. It was unknown where they had been sent. In the main hall of the courtyard, there were also 4 large round tables. Lu Lihong sat at the head, accompanied by Chen Fengxiao and Wu Zhouxiu. Below him were great guardian warrior Zhou Shuming, great Arhat Lu Fengming, and the others. At the table next to him was Yang Yao, who was also accompanied by several guardian warriors and Arhats. The other 2 tables were also occupied by the other members of the pill and grass divisions. At this time, Lu Lihong's face was red from drinking. He raised his wine cup and said something to Chen Fengxiao. Yang Yao was also the same. Although he was not sitting at the head table, it seemed that there was nothing wrong with it. This made Zhang Xiaohua a little puzzled. The pill-expanding hall and woming hall of the fragrance cult were the same. Why did the disciples of the pill-expanding hall feel inferior to woming hall? Could it be because woming hall was an outer disciple? But thinking back to that time in the Misty School, He Tianshu, as a disciple of the pill-expanding hall, seemed to be the same as the other disciples. Seeing that everyone had their own seats, it seemed that there was no need for him to appear. Zhang Xiaohua had the intention to return to the top of the mountain. He was not sure whether Yang Yao came to Tianmu Peak to see him or not. If he went up for no reason, what if Yang Yao gave him a cold shoulder? Wouldn't that be very embarrassing? And he remembered that on the way to the fragrance cult, Yang Yao repeatedly told him not to let the people of the pill-expanding hall know that he was taking care of him. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua was about to leave. At this time, a voice sounded, "Junior brother, please wait." Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. He turned around and saw an unfamiliar disciple running from afar, sweating profusely. When he saw Zhang Xiaohua's face, his face lit up and he said, "Junior brother Ren, it's really you. Io, where did you go?" After senior brother Lu's report, Headmaster Chun asked senior brother Bai and us to look for you. But we couldn't find you in the entire courtyard. Zhang Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, senior brother. I went to the inner courtyard to look for clothes, but I got lost. I just came out from the back. I'm regretting that I didn't hear senior brother Lu's report." "Io, then you lost a lot." Senior brother Lu, this senior brother Zhang Xiaohua had never met, was about to say something, but he was interrupted by a call. When Zhang Xiaohua looked up, wasn't it Bai Huan? He saw that Bai Huan's face was also covered in sweat. She hurriedly walked over and said, "We finally found junior brother Ren. Headmaster Chun ordered us to let you in quickly. Let's go." "Oh, why haven't you changed your clothes?" Zhang Xiaohua spread his hands and said, "I couldn't find the inner courtyard, so I couldn't find my clothes." "Then what should we do? Why don't I take you to the inner courtyard to change your clothes?" Bai Huan didn't know what to do at the moment. -3. Chapter 586. Zhang Xiaohua didn't bother to change her clothes. She just smiled and said, "Forget it, senior brother Bai. He's just meeting a former senior brother of our sect. Why do you have to be like this?" Bai Huan argued, "But this is senior brother Lu Lihong. He's different from others. Besides, Headmaster Chen has also instructed me." "Forget it, then I'd better go back to the top of the mountain." Zhang Xiaohua pretended to leave. Bai Huan immediately grabbed Zhang Xiaohua's clothes and said anxiously, "How can you do that?" Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua didn't want to change into new clothes, the disciple next to her came up with an idea and said, "How about this, junior brother Bai? Just say that you haven't found clothes suitable for junior brother Ren. That works?" Bai Huan was a little dumbfounded. Zhang Xiaohua nodded repeatedly. "This works, absolutely." "Okay then." Bai Huan helplessly walked into the courtyard with Zhang Xiaohua. At the banquet, Yang Yao was listening attentively to what Arhat Zhang Xiaohua was saying. From time to time, he squinted his eyes and nodded frequently. When he was talking, he couldn't help but applaud. At this moment, he looked up and saw Bai Huan walking in with Zhang Xiaohua. His eyes immediately lit up and the smile on his face became wider. He stared at the slowly approaching Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua had been looking at the banquet. When she saw Yang Yao looking at her, she also smiled and nodded at Yang Yao. Although she was behind Bai Huan, her footsteps quickened. After entering the hall, Bai Huan went to Chen Fengxiao. At this time, Chen Fengxiao was holding a wine glass, accompanied by Wu Zhouxiu. He was talking to Lu Lihong with his head lowered. Bai Huan whispered, Headmaster Chen, I found Ren Xiaoyao. Well, why did it take so long? Where did he go? Chen Fengxiao frowned and looked up unhappily. However, before Bai Huan could explain, Chen Fengxiao said to Zhang Xiaohua, who was behind Bai Huan, in a clear voice, Little brother, come here quickly. Let me introduce you. Before he could finish his words, his expression changed slightly. He saw Zhang Xiaohua enter the hall. She smiled and nodded slightly at Chen Feng, then turned around and walked towards Yang Yao. When she arrived in front of him, she bowed deeply and said, Marshal Uncle Yang, long time no see. Are you well? Zhang Xiaohua's actions were out of the expectations of all the disciples in the hall. Not to mention Chen Fengxiao, even Yang Yao was caught off guard. Yang Yao hurriedly got up and helped Zhang Xiaohua up. Marshal Nisren, you're too polite. We've only been apart for a dozen days. Everything is fine. Then, he took Zhang Xiaohua's hand and came to the main table. Come, let me introduce you to our distinguished guest of the Pill Repository Hall. He's also a senior of the Rejuvenation Valley. He's now a famous outer disciple of the Wuming Hall, senior brother Lu Lihong. Lu Lihong was talking to Chen Fengxiao just now, so he did not notice anything. It was not until Zhang Xiaohua walked into the hall and Chen Fengxiao introduced her that he clearly saw Zhang Xiaohua's face. In an instant, his expression changed slightly, but it soon returned to normal. He was also surprised when he saw Zhang Xiaohua walk over to greet Yang Yao. His eyes revealed a look of interest. Now that Yang Yao introduced her, he hurriedly got up. His face flushed with surprise again, and he said, Oh, this is the new medicine apprentice of the fragrant cult this year. Haha, I've long heard of him, but I didn't expect to see him today. It's really better to see once than to hear 100 times. Then, he took Zhang Xiaohua's hand affectionately, as if he had never seen her before. Zhang Xiaohua pulled her hand away and saluted again. So it's senior brother Lu. I've long heard of your great name. Now that I see you, I admire you even more. You're just like your name, extraordinary, extraordinary. Chen Fengxiao, who was standing to the side, secretly gave Zhang Xiaohua a thumbs up in his heart. This is a real man who doesn't forget his roots. Then, he patted Zhang Xiaohua's shoulder and said, This is also the most talented medicine apprentice of our Tianmu Peak in recent years. Although he's still young, he vaguely has the demeanor of junior brother Lu in the past. Lu Lihong looked at Zhang Xiaohua and said with a smile, That's right. Junior brother Ren is the prospective son-in-law of Rejuvenation Valley's Valley Master Nye. How can his martial arts be lacking? When he said this, Chen Fengxiao and the rest frowned slightly. Even the other disciples in the main hall had strange expressions on their faces. The way they looked at Zhang Xiaohua had changed. Everyone naturally knew that Zhang Xiaohua came from Rejuvenation Valley. However, the fact that he was the son-in-law of Rejuvenation Valley was considered a secret. It wasn't suitable for many people to know about it. Of course, he was different from ordinary medicine apprentices. The others also knew about this. However, they also knew what they should know and what they shouldn't know. Therefore, they wouldn't ask at all. Now that Lu Lihong had said it in front of them, he directly broke the window paper. How could they not see Zhang Xiaohua in a new light? As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Lihong's face was full of regret. His expression changed faster than flipping a book. He slapped his own mouth and said, Io, junior brother Ren, look at me. I've lost my virtue after drinking. Please forgive me. In fact, Zhang Xiaohua didn't care about this. She hurriedly smiled and said, Senior brother Lu is really a person who knows everything. This little secret of mine is known by senior brother from Wuming Hall. I really admire you. Zhang Xiaohua didn't care, but Yang Yao couldn't not care. He was the one who brought Zhang Xiaohua from Rejuvenation Valley. Therefore, he looked at Chen Fengxiao and Wu Zhouxiu as if nothing had happened. The two of them also understood and said with a smile, Although junior brother Lu is now an outer disciple of Wuming Hall, he used to call us brothers in Pill Expanding Hall. Since we are brothers, we naturally speak behind closed doors. Only we brothers know about junior brother Lu's drunken words just now. If others know about it then, before they finished speaking, everyone already knew what they meant. Naturally, They wouldn't let them finish their words. Zhou Shuming and the others raised their cups and said, Headmaster Chun and Wu Dalong, don't worry. Even if the walls have ears, we brothers will cut off those ears. Come, cheers. Lu Lihong also raised his cup and said, Come, junior brother Ren. Senior brother apologizes to you. This? Zhang Xiaohua was a little hesitant. Chen Fengxiao, who was next to her, hurriedly explained, Junior brother Lu, please don't blame us. Junior brother Ren is still young and can't drink wine. Why don't we substitute tea for wine? Lu Lihong said with a smile, Junior brother Ren is taller than me when standing in front of me. How can he be young? Come, you must drink wine. Only then can you be a real man and a real son-in-law. These words were a little vulgar, but they were exactly what the others were thinking. Zhou Shuming and the others all roared with laughter. When Zhang Xiaohua heard this, she smiled and said, Since senior brother Lu insists on letting me drink a cup, I can't be ungrateful to senior brother. However, this is the first time I've drunk wine. How about this cup? Lu Lihong said with a smile, Of course. As long as junior brother Ren gives me face, it's fine. Zhang Xiaohua picked up a wine cup from the table and raised it in front of her chest. Lu Lihong said, Okay. Then he drank it in one gulp, and the others followed suit. Although the Pill Tower Hall's wine wasn't as good as Rejuvenation Valley's 100 Flowers wine, it was still considered an excellent wine. It tasted much better than the Xian Ronggang's wine. However, Zhang Xiaohua only drank one cup and didn't drink more. She had already asked for one cup, and Lu Lihong had also agreed. After a few failed attempts to persuade her to drink, everyone didn't force her and sat down. Chen Fengxiao originally wanted Zhang Xiaohua to sit beside him so that she could be closer to Lu Lihong. However, Zhang Xiaohua said that she had some private matters to discuss with Yang Yao, so she only sat beside Yang Yao. Chen Fengxiao saw that Lu Lihong only picked up a pair of chopsticks and didn't force him. He followed Wu Zhouxiu and continued to accompany Lu Lihong to drink and chat. When Zhang Xiaohua sat down, Yang Yao's face was filled with joy. He said in a low voice, Martial nephew Run, when I sent you to this place, I was worried for many days. Later on, I met the hall master and specially reported to him that I wanted to transfer you back to White Mountain Peak. However, there were some difficulties involved, so I couldn't do it. But now, it seems that Martial nephew Ran is like a fish in water here. You're living a free and unfettered life. This makes me feel very gratified and relieved. I was still worried that I would mistreat you and fail to live up to Brother Nye's trust. Gosh, Zhang Xiaohua silently cursed. I've been branded with Rejuvenation Valley's brand. I reckon I won't be able to get rid of the title of son-in-law. However, Yang Yao's words were very sincere and must have come from the bottom of his heart. Zhang Xiaohua picked up the teacup and said, I can't drink wine. I'll use tea in place of wine. Thank you for your concern, Martial Uncle. Good. Yang Yao smiled and raised his cup. He drank a cup and looked at Zhang Xiaohua with relief, saying, I heard from you that you displayed great prowess the moment you arrived at Tianmu Peak. You won 3 matches in a row and even defeated Martial Nephew Zhou in Qinggong. I didn't expect Martial Nephew Rin's martial arts to be so powerful. It's far beyond my expectations. How could Zhang Xiaohua admit to it? She only smiled and said, Martial Uncle thinks too highly of me. This was all due to Headmaster Qin's arrangements. I was only very lucky to achieve such a result. Moreover, it was my first time at Tianmu Peak and my senior martial brothers were not familiar with it. That was why I lost. If we compete again in the future, I won't be so lucky and can only lower my head and admit defeat. Haha, Martial Nephew is still young. There's still room for improvement in the future. There's no need to fuss over a temporary victory or defeat. Yang Yao comforted. Oh yes, I heard that you changed all your elixirs to medicinal herbs. Why did you do that? Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua gave a long sigh and said, Sigh, Martial Uncle, please don't mention this matter. Every time you mention this matter, I regret it. You also know that I came from a small sect in Jianghu and have not seen much of the world. I only know that aged medicinal herbs are precious. No matter how many elixirs I have, I won't be able to use them all. Why not exchange them for medicinal herbs? Only after I changed them did I realize that in our pill repository hall, medicinal herbs are like weeds. I still have many medicinal herbs left in a small courtyard. After listening to Zhang Xiaohua's confession, Yang Yao smiled and said, all the new alchemy apprentices are like this. When they see a medicinal herb, they treat it like a treasure. In fact, they don't know that this kind of herb is everywhere. You are also new here, so you will slowly learn about it in the future. However, exchanging medicinal herbs with medicinal pills, you have suffered a great loss. At this point, Lu Liheng said, Junior Brother Ren, I misspoke after drinking and now I regret it. Can you give me a chance to deal with your herbs as an apology? -3. Chapter 587. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaohua was stunned and stared at Lu Liheng for dozens of seconds. What does this person mean? Just now, you were so obvious about my origin, and now you want to immediately remedy it? Moreover, this medicinal herb is useless in the hands of others, but in my hands, it's something much more precious than a medicinal pill. How can I let you steal my treasure and owe you a favor? How can I let everyone praise you? All right, speaking of snatching my stuff, this guy snatched my dragon scale fruit the first time we met, and now he's still thinking about other herbs? Yes, absolutely not. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua was silent, Lu Liheng smiled warmly and said, What? Junior Brother Rin doesn't want to give me face? Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and said, No, these herbs are annoying me to death. I can't throw them away, but I can't keep them either. If Senior Brother Lu can help me solve them, that would be the best. But, Senior Brother Lu, I understand Junior Brother Rin's meaning. I also know that Junior Brother Rin showed off his invincible strength and won 3 battles. Speaking of which, I have also heard about the battles on Tianmu Peak. But when I was in the Pill Formation Hall, I was always in the White Mountain Peak. Later on, when I entered the Outer Sect, I went to the Wuming Hall and had no chance to come to Tianmu Peak. Now that I heard Junior Brother's spirit in the battles, I couldn't help but feel itchy. How about this? I will take out. Without waiting for Lu Liheng to finish, Zhang Xiaohua interrupted him and said with a surprised expression, What? Senior Brother Lu wants to take out 150 taels of gold to exchange for herbs with me? Ahem. Lu Liheng's face flushed red, but it was covered by alcohol and couldn't be seen. He awkwardly said, Junior Brother Ren is very generous and won 150 taels of gold in one go. But Junior Brother thinks, even Headmaster Qin and Wu Dalong don't have that much gold. How can a poor outer sect disciple like me have that much gold? Zhang Xiaohua's face was full of disappointment, but her eyes were full of eagerness. She said, It's fine if you don't have gold. Even if it's 150 taels of gold, Junior Brother is willing to exchange. Lu Liheng almost choked when he heard Zhang Xiaohua mention 150 gold taels. He clenched his teeth and finally resisted the urge to go berserk. He maintained his amiable tone. Little brother is really a bit greedy. Of course, this is the nature of a man. Haha, but since little brother didn't get the 150 gold taels pill that day and instead exchanged it for some worthless herbs, then these herbs can't be counted as 150 gold taels. Sigh, isn't this nonsense? I know you can't take it out, so I'm forcing you. Zhang Xiaohua's heart was beating rapidly, and then she pretended to be puzzled and said, Then Senior Brother Lu's meaning is? Lu Liheng was speechless, and he snappily said, I understand Junior Brother Ren's feelings, but you have to wait for me to make things clear. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, It's Junior Brother's fault, Junior Brother's fault. Senior Brother Lu, please explain clearly. Chun Feng smiled and toasted Lu Liheng with a cup of wine. Lu Liheng then said slowly, I've been looking forward to Tianmu Peak's gambling match for a long time, but I've never had the chance to participate. Now that I'm an Outer Sanctum disciple, I'm even more helpless. Now that I've met Junior Brother Ren, I can't help but be secretly delighted. Why don't we use Junior Brother Ren's medicinal herbs as the stakes and have a gambling match? Although I can't officially participate in Tianmu Peak's gambling match, if I can't compete with Junior Brother Ren, I'll have no regrets in life. What? Have no regrets in this life? Zhang Xiaohua's head was full of black lines, and she secretly said, It's better to die without regrets. Hearing this, the people around them were slightly shocked. After all, Lu Lihong was an outer disciple, and a disciple who had fought his way out of the Dan opening hall. His martial arts were obviously superior to the other disciples of the Dan opening hall. Now, he wanted to compete with Zhang Xiaohua, who had just joined the Dan opening hall. Wasn't this an adult playing with a child? But then, everyone came to a realization. Didn't he just say that he wanted to make up for his previous mistakes and help Zhang Xiaohua recover some of her losses? As a result, Lu Lihong's image in everyone's hearts was a bit higher than before. If possible, Chun Fengxiao wanted to hold another advance report. Yes, if possible. I'll record it in the Grass Division's journal. The title will be Senior Brother of the Dan Opening Hall Guides Junior Brother Later. Highlights Grass Division's unity and friendship, Chun Fengxiao thought excitedly. Zhang Xiaohua's face was also excited, and she cried out, "Io, that's great. But Senior Brother Lu, what kind of pill will you use for the bet?" But then, she said somewhat dejectedly, "But Senior Brother Lu's martial arts are so high. How can I be your opponent?" Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua agreed, Lu Lihong took out a jade bottle from his bosom and said, "This is a Yuandan pill that I occasionally got from the hall leader. Although it's not much, it can be considered rare in the outer sect. I don't know if Junior Brother Ren thinks it's suitable." This? Zhang Xiaohua didn't know how to answer. To be honest, she didn't want to exchange at all, not to mention that she still had 4 Yuandan pill in her bosom. Zhang Xiaohua didn't say anything, but the people around them were in an uproar. Thinking back to that day at Zhoushu, the Yuandan pill was already worth 30 taels of gold for Zhang Xiaohua, let alone the real thing. Especially Qin Fengxiao, his eyes almost reached out a hand. He understood that Zhang Xiaohua didn't know much about the Yuandan pill of the Chuanxiang cult, so it was impossible for her to understand the importance of this Yuandan pill. So, if Zhang Xiaohua won and exchanged a pile of useless herbs for this Yuandan pill that was even more precious than gold, it was hard to say who would get the Yuandan pill in the end. Well, there was nothing hard to say. Qin Fengxiao was the head of the grass department at Timu Peak, so this Yuandan pill would definitely fall into his hands. Zhang Xiaohua was just a medicine boy with an unstable foundation. Even if he was strong in martial arts, how could he be a match for the 6 great Luohan and Qin Fengxiao? Besides, Qin Fengxiao was best at using the carrot and stick. He could use other pills to exchange with Zhang Xiaohua. In a flash, Qin Fengxiao thought a lot. He turned to look at Wu Zhoushu, who had the same expression, and exchanged information in a flash. Last time when Qin Fengxiao took the Yuandan pill, Wu Zhoushu's heart was still bleeding. Wouldn't this Yuandan pill make up for the grievances between them? Suitable. Why not? Qin Fengxiao immediately took over the conversation. He patted Zhang Xiaohua's shoulder with a smile and said, "Little brother, you have been worrying about these herbs. What do you think our pill expanding hall does? These herbs are no different from useless herbs. Junior Brother Lu is so benevolent that Junior Brother Ren is so happy that he doesn't know what to say." Zhang Xiaohua sighed and said, "But how can I be a match for Senior Brother Lu? If I go on the field, I will be beaten down in a few moves. I might as well not go on the field." Qin Fengxiao would not allow him to slack off. He also frowned and said to Lu Lihong, "Junior Brother Ren is right. Junior Brother Lu is an outer disciple. In Jianghu, he is a first-class master. He is more than 2 levels higher than Junior Brother Ren." "This is easy," Lu Lihong said proudly. "Tomorrow, I will only use one hand and one foot. If I use the other hand and one foot, I will lose." "Good." Qin Fengxiao slapped the table and stood up. He raised his wine cup and said, "Junior Brother Lu's heroic spirit alone is enough for me to drink with you. Admirable, such a master's demeanor." It seemed that the one to go on the field was Headmaster Chen. After Lu Lihong drank the wine, Zhang Xiaohua said weakly, "Thank you for your help, Senior Apprentice Brother Lu. So the bet is my pile of herbs and Senior Apprentice Brother's Jade Rejuvenation Pill?" "Yes, it is." Lu Lihong nodded. "Senior Brother Lu will use one hand and one foot against me. If I use one more hand or one foot, I will lose?" "Of course." Lu Lihong nodded again. "Oh, then if I win, this pile of herbs will be Senior Brother Lu's. If I lose, this pill will be mine?" "Yes, that's it." Lu Lihong was a bit impatient. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed and said, "Thank you, Senior Brother Lu. You're welcome, you're welcome." Lu Lihong waved his hand and said, "Just now." But halfway through his words, he saw the eyes of the people around him. He recalled what he said just now and realized. He waved his hand even harder and explained, "I was wrong, I was wrong." Zhang Xiaohua said with a smile, "It's all right, senior brother Lu. We're all brothers behind closed doors. There's no need to pay attention to a gentleman keeps his word." Lu Lihong didn't know if Zhang Xiaohua was using words or if she had other intentions. However, he didn't dare to take her words seriously. If Zhang Xiaohua won, the herbs would be Lu Lihong's. If Zhang Xiaohua lost, the pills would be Zhang Xiaohua's. No matter what, Zhang Xiaohua had an advantage. Lu Lihong was in a bit of a dilemma. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua burst into laughter again. He raised his teacup and said, "I'm just joking. Senior brother Lu, let me toast you. If I win, these herbs will be senior brother Lu's and the pills will be mine. If I lose, the herbs will still be mine and the pills will still be senior brother Lu's." This time, Lu Lihong didn't dare to casually agree. After thinking for a moment, he smiled and said, "Junior brother Run is really naughty. Okay, let's do as junior brother Run said. Let's drink this cup and start the bet tomorrow morning." "All right, I hope that little brother will still have good luck tomorrow." Zhang Xiaohua smiled and drank the tea. However, he immediately said, "It's already late today, and senior martial brother Lu needs to rest well tomorrow. Why don't we move the bet to the afternoon?" Chen Fengxiao and Wu Zhoushu looked at each other and said, "Junior brother Ren is right. If junior brother Lu has no objections, then let's do it this way." Lu Lihong naturally didn't have any objections. "This is my first time participating in a gambling fight, so I'll follow your rules." After the discussion was settled, everyone sat down to drink and drink. Yang Yao asked about Zhang Xiaohua's recent situation in a low voice. -3. Chapter 588. Looking at Yang Yao's intentions, it seemed that he really valued his relationship with Rejuvenation Valley's Valley Head Nya. He wanted to transfer Zhang Xiaohua back to the pill-expanding hall at the White Yefeng Peak and point the way for Zhang Xiaohua to become an outer disciple. But how could Zhang Xiaohua be willing? First of all, the pill room at the top of Tianmu Peak was the best place to practice and refine pills. Once she moved to the White Yefeng Peak, it was a question whether there would still be such a pill room. Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua didn't want to move for the time being. Moreover, what kind of place was the White Yefeng Peak? That was where the pill-expanding hall was located. There were many eyes, and there were all kinds of schemes. This wasn't a place that Zhang Xiaohua was willing to go. It was better to be free and unfettered on Tianmu Peak. When the time was right, she could travel with the wind, and it would be convenient for her to find second brother. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua comforted Yang Yao and said that as long as it was a luminous pearl, it would shine no matter where it went. She even brought up the issue of her height in an attempt to persuade Yang Yao. Actually, Yang Yao was just saying, even if he wanted to transfer Zhang Xiaohua back to the White Yefeng Peak, it was just a thought. He had the heart but was powerless to do so. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua was so sensible, he naturally felt at ease. It was as if a huge stone had been lifted from his heart, and he couldn't help but drink a few more cups. After sitting with her for a while, he saw that it was getting late. Zhang Xiaohua was still refining the medicinal liquid in the pill room. He didn't want to stay any longer and stood up to bid farewell. He wasn't the main character of the banquet, so Chen Fengxiao and the others didn't stand on ceremony. They only urged him to stay for a while before letting him go. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua's back figure walk out of the hall without hesitation, Lu Lihong and Yang Yao, who were drinking with their heads lowered, had different expressions in their eyes. As soon as Zhang Xiaohua walked out of the hall, the noisy courtyard instantly became silent. Zhang Xiaohua was very surprised. Looking around, she didn't find anything unusual. She saw Bai Huan in the corner of the courtyard, eating and drinking at a table. At this time, seeing Zhang Xiaohua come out, she didn't dare to stay for long. Wiping the grease on her lips, she picked up a lantern behind the courtyard door and hurriedly followed him. The path was secluded and he was alone, so he didn't dare to go up and down. As soon as Zhang Xiaohua walked out of the courtyard, there was strange? Strange. Zhang Xiaohua was even more puzzled. He shook his head and walked away. She was Bai Huan, was it? Was Chan? Was it that? Was that? Was it that I? He was to? It? S to brother run was Yao? Is was master? Zhang Xiaohua laughed and said, Senior brother Bai, why are you being so polite? Why is it different from this afternoon? If you have something to say, just say it. Don't worry. Zhang Xiaohua didn't know that Bai Huan took him into the hall. Zhang Xiaohua ignored Lu Lihong and directly greeted Yang Yao. He saw clearly that Lu Lihong was an outer disciple and his idol. In his mind, Lu Lihong was more powerful than Qin Feng Xiao. Zhang Xiaohua actually ignored Lu Lihong, which suddenly made Bai Huan think, Ren Xiaoyao's martial arts are either better than Lu Lihong's, or he has a deep background in the pill expanding hall. Maybe Rejuvenation Valley is just a cover. Bai Huan didn't know much about martial arts, so he didn't know which of the two possibilities was more realistic. But no matter which one it was, Bai Huan couldn't afford to offend Zhang Xiaohua. Therefore, he unconsciously classified Zhang Xiaohua as someone who could be treated respectfully. Naturally, he spoke very politely. Bai Huan said with a smile, Junior brother Ren, please don't blame me. I have something to ask you. Huh? Zhang Xiaohua asked curiously, what is it? Bai Huan said, do you remember when I just came to the top of the mountain? I asked you for help? If there is a gambling fight in the future, please let me know first. Tomorrow's gambling fight. Zhang Xiaohua was even more surprised. Senior brother Bai, it was just decided in the hall. How did you know it so soon? Humph, Bai Huan despised him, but he immediately felt that his attitude was not right. He smiled apologetically and said, Junior fellow apprentice, you don't know. When you bravely accepted senior fellow apprentice Lu's challenge in the hall, someone secretly told the brothers in the yard. We quarreled in the yard. Oh, I see. Zhang Xiaohua finally knew why there was an abnormal scene in the yard as soon as he walked out of the hall. Junior brother Ren dared to accept senior brother Lu's challenge, which was praised by the brothers. They all said that junior brother Ren's courage is commendable. Commendable? Zhang Xiaohua figured out the meaning of it and said with a fake smile, do the senior brothers all think that I can't beat senior brother Lu? Well, Bai Huan didn't know how to answer. He scratched his head and said, this is what I want to ask you. Do you think I should bet that junior brother Ren will win tomorrow? What if I bet on senior brother Bai? Who do you think you should bet on? Zhang Xiaohua asked with interest. Cough cough, junior brother Ren, please don't blame me. Senior brother Lu is an outer sect disciple. Even head leader Chun is no match for him. If I were to bet, I would definitely bet on senior brother Lu. It's just that. It seems like everyone is betting on senior brother Lu. Even if senior brother Lu wins, there won't be much to gain. Zhang Xiaohua smiled and said, if I were you, I would also bet on senior brother Lu. Are you sure? Sure. After listening to Zhang Xiaohua's answer, Bai Huan had a plan in his heart and said, in fact, I want to bet on junior brother Ren. If there is an accident, won't I be rich? Alas, I don't know if tomorrow's gambling fight will count as points. Otherwise, I really want to give it a try. Zhang Xiaohua smiled. Last time when she bet on herself, she actually won against everyone. Presumably, there would be many people speculating in tomorrow's gambling fight. But, would she let them win? As the two talked, they came to the top of the mountain. It was almost midnight. Bai Huan cupped his hands and said, Junior brother Ren, rest early. I will call you tomorrow morning. Don't. Zhang Xiaohua waved her hand and said, the gambling fight is arranged in the afternoon, not the morning. I will rest tomorrow morning and prepare well. Come to me afternoon. Arranged in the afternoon? Bai Huan was stunned and immediately nodded. Okay, junior brother Ren, rest early. Even if you lose tomorrow, it is pardonable. After all, he is an outer disciple. Hearing that Bai Huan was going to nag again, Zhang Xiaohua quickly said, okay, senior brother Bai, rest early. I will leave the work of the herb field to you tomorrow. After that, she turned and went to the cave. Watching Zhang Xiaohua leave, Bai Huan walked back to his hut helplessly. As he walked, he muttered, why can't there be an upset? Can't you let me be rich for once? His voice was not loud, but it still reached Zhang Xiaohua's ears. Zhang Xiaohua curled her lips and said, who doesn't want to be rich? But before you get rich, you should not lose money. Although elixirs are good, they are not as good as herbs. After entering the cave, Zhang Xiaohua did not dare to delay. She set up the restriction and immediately went into the elixir room. She took out the futon and sat cross-legged in front of the elixir furnace. She used her divine sense to check the elixir furnace. Seeing that there was nothing wrong, she was relieved and took out the vitality stones from her arms and began her night routine. Not long after, starlight shone down and shrouded the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace. The starlight directly shot into the 8 sealed openings of the elixir furnace and also into the refining liquid. Everything was the same as the scene when Zhang Xiaohua was refining elixirs in Rejuvenation Valley. It was a quiet night. When she woke up the next day, she saw that the refining liquid was still slowly rotating, and there was less dust flying out. Zhang Xiaohua knew that the refining process was about to be completed. She compared it in her heart and found that it was much faster than the previous elixir furnace. After practicing the fist technique, Zhang Xiaohua returned to the front of the cauldron and waited for a moment. Seeing that the medicinal liquid had almost stopped moving and there were no impurities being quenched, he knew that the quenching stage was completed. Then, he closed his eyes and recalled the unique method of using the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace. Only then did he slowly raise his left hand and his fingers moved nimbly, sending one technique after another into the cauldron. Not long after, a small hole flashed in the formation of the cauldron. The medicinal liquid of the iron bone grass that had been quenched in the cauldron earlier came out of the small hole and floated to the center of the cauldron, where it floated motionlessly. Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense swept over the medicinal liquid. Zhang Xiaohua exclaimed in surprise again, and then immersed his divine sense into the medicinal liquid. There was also a faint starlight in the liquid. What's going on? Zhang Xiaohua touched her chin and was puzzled. Is this common in elixir refining? Maybe. This was not the time to think. Moreover, it was Zhang Xiaohua's second time refining a low-level elixir. Maybe when she refined more, she would know the reason. Zhang Xiaohua comforted herself like this and struck the incantation with her left hand again. Not long after, the blackwood fruit, liquid in the quaking furnace, and the fragrant soulwood, liquid in the calming furnace were also integrated into the liquid of the iron bone grass in the center of the elixir furnace. It was a combination of metal, wood, and water. With the experience of refining elixir in the Rejuvenation Valley last time, Zhang Xiaohua was not in a hurry this time. She methodically entered the liquid melting incantation, creating mutual promotion and mutual restraint in the different attributes of the liquid. The liquid that was originally still gradually rotated again as the other 2 liquid were integrated into it. Gradually, a cycle was formed inside the liquid. And in this cycle, a faint starlight also rotated slightly, as if it was also building something. After a long time, when the liquid of the 3 main ingredients stabilized, Zhang Xiaohua struck the incantation again. The liquid that had been refined in the Kuan furnace, Sun furnace, and other formations were also integrated into the liquid one by one according to the mutual restraint of the 5 elements. Every time these liquid were integrated, it would cause the liquid in the center to vibrate and swell. At one point, there were signs of collapse. However, it was all safely passed under the control of Zhang Xiaohua's incantation. When all the liquid was integrated, Zhang Xiaohua struck the last incantation. The 8 trigrams purple gold furnace roared. From the bottom of the rapidly rotating liquid in the center of the elixir furnace, a wisp of light red, true samadhi fire, as thin as hair appeared out of thin air. It wrapped around the liquid that was as big as a head. This was the unique method of the 8 trigrams purple gold furnace. -3. Chapter 589. Looking at the light red, true samadhi fire that was like a tiny dragon circling around the rapidly spinning medicinal liquid and occasionally penetrating it, Zhang Xiaohua wiped the faint sweat on his head and breathed a sigh of relief. When he checked the true qi in his body, he was shocked again. This simple melting of the liquid had consumed almost half of his true qi. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but sigh again. The cultivation of the qi refining stage was really not worth mentioning. However, he also did not lack of diligent cultivation. It was just that he had only entered the immortal Tao for a short period of time. He really didn't know when he would be able to cultivate the 18 levels of the mental cultivation method one by one. Sighing, Zhang Xiaohua carefully observed the elixir furnace with his divine sense before returning to the cave. As soon as he returned to the cave, Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. It wasn't that there were any strange people or things in the cave, but standing at the entrance of the cave, the blazing sun hanging high in the sky was already a little to the west. Zhang Xiaohua was a little at a loss. When he entered the cave, it was still early in the morning and the rising sun had just shone on the cave. This simple process from the melting of the liquid to the gestation of the elixir took an entire morning? Ouch! Zhang Xiaohua immediately slapped his forehead. It was already past noon. Wasn't the gambling fight between him and Lu Lihong set for this afternoon? Looking at the time, it was about to start. Of course, Zhang Xiaohua immediately put away his panic. This afternoon's gambling fight was originally forced to do something beyond his ability. If he could be late and not have the gambling fight, that would be the best. Unfortunately, his beautiful wish would always be a beautiful bubble. Outside the cave, at a flat area on the cliff, Bai Huan anxiously paced in a small area. There were several times when he wanted to shout loudly, but just as he opened his mouth, he swallowed it back down. Just as he gritted his teeth and was about to walk into the cave, Zhang Xiaohua slowly walked out. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua come out, Bai Huan was like seeing a savior. He quickly walked over, grabbed Zhang Xiaohua's sleeve and complained, "Junior brother, why did you come out so late? Headmaster Chun sent people to urge you many times. I always wanted to call you, but I heard that even people with internal strength are afraid of being disturbed. I didn't dare to. But when I walked to the front of your cave, I couldn't see anything clearly. It was dark inside. I was so anxious that I wanted to jump off the cliff." Zhang Xiaohua was not anxious. He smiled and said, "Senior brother Bai, it's just a gambling fight. It's just an informal gambling fight. Why are you so nervous? It's not time yet, right?" But Bai Huan didn't know how to enlighten this guy who regarded idols as dung. An elite disciple of the outer door wanted to make friends with you and exchanged your useless herbs. But you were not in a hurry. You were simply shameless. However, Bai Huan was afraid that he would fail to live up to Headmaster Chen's request. He pulled Zhang Xiaohua's sleeve and rushed down the mountain. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua did not say anything. He just silently used the levitation skill and followed down the mountain. The road down the mountain was very long. But under Bai Huan's deliberate rush, it actually took them half the time yesterday to reach the gambling fight arena. At this time, the gambling fight arena was the same as what Zhang Xiaohua saw last time. It was the same layout, the same judgment, and the same busy betting. The only difference was the fanatical look in the eyes of the disciples. After all, it had been a long time since the last gambling fight. And now, standing in the arena with his hands behind his back and looking up at the floating clouds was their idol. Looking at Lu Lihong in his white robe, standing there elegantly, the eyes of the disciples were full of stars. They did not hesitate at all when they placed their bets. If they did not support him now, when would they? Seeing Zhang Xiaohua running over with Bai Huan, Chun Fengxiao's face was filled with anger. He went up to them and asked, "Junior brother Ren, what's going on? I sent people to invite you again and again. Why don't you give me face?" Zhang Xiaohua cupped his hands and said apologetically, "Head Chin, don't worry. Little brother is really sorry. I was adjusting my breathing in the morning and forgot the time. I only just woke up. If you don't believe me, you can ask senior brother Bai." Bai Huan also said anxiously, "Yes, Head Chin, junior brother Ren did not show up at all this morning. Last night, he specially told me that he has to adjust himself well today and fight senior brother Lu in his best condition. You invited him several times, but I did not dare to shout carelessly. I was afraid that junior brother Ren would go crazy." Chun Feng glared at Bai Huan and was about to speak again when he heard a voice beside him. Junior brother Ren can adjust his breathing in seclusion at such a young age. His future is really bright and limitless." It was Lu Lihong who had quietly used his Qing Gong to come over. Seeing Lu Lihong approach him without him noticing, Chun Feng was shocked at Lu Lihong's Qing Gong. At the same time, he also had some doubts about Zhang Xiaohua's words. He only smiled and said, "Senior brother Lu, are you sure?" I heard that adjusting one's breathing in seclusion is a reflection of one's profound internal strength. Does junior brother Rin have such profound internal strength? Lu Lihong was also surprised and asked, Junior brother Rin, don't worry. You're not late. You're just a little bit late. Oh, can you tell me what kind of internal strength you're cultivating? Reckless bull strength. Zhang Xiaohua said without hesitation. Nonsense, I only know the name of this internal strength. Who else would I talk about if not it? Lu Lihong was obviously stunned as if he had never heard of it. He nodded thoughtfully and said, this technique is very powerful just from the name. I vaguely heard from the outer sect masters that it should be a first-class internal strength cultivation method in Jianghu. Not bad, junior brother Ren. You're very lucky to have the opportunity to cultivate such a profound internal strength. I wonder which level junior brother has reached? Lu Lihong's voice was very loud as if he was showing off his knowledge. The nearby disciples all nodded as they listened. After listening to Lu Lihong's words, Zhang Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Presumably, this technique that was commonly seen in Jianghu wouldn't be seen by the martial arts masters of Wuming Hall of the Incense Cult. When Lu Lihong was in Rejuvenation Valley, he was only a medicine boy and didn't cultivate martial arts. He only came into contact with internal strength cultivation methods when he came to the incense cult. Therefore, he didn't know what kind of martial arts the reckless bull's strength was. Not far away, Zhang Xiaohua stole a glance at Yang Yao, who was trying hard to hold back his laughter. He was also looking up to admire the floating clouds. Zhang Xiaohua understood that everything was floating clouds. Therefore, she smiled and said, Senior brother Lu is wise. I'm not talented and have only just come into contact with this profound internal strength. How could I know the level? I only have a little sense of qi. I don't dare to embarrass myself. Lu Lihong nodded and said, I'm only a medicine boy of the pill expanding hall. Planting herbs and refining pills are my true profession. It's already good that I'm able to cultivate profound martial arts. If I want to compete with the disciples who practice internal strength from a young age, I'm too far away. Junior brother Rin, you don't need to belittle yourself. Let's fight in a bit and you'll know. Oh, this is related to your herbs. You must try to beat me by half a move. Zhang Xiaohua shook her head and said, How can I be senior brother Lu's opponent? I've gained some understanding from practicing reckless bull force over the past few days, and I know that the level of qi in a person's martial arts will directly determine the level of their martial arts. Skills are just support. Your qi is great, and it's not something I can compare to. Even if you only use one hand, I won't be able to reach you. Lu Lihong nodded with an enigmatic expression and said in a senior tone, Junior brother, you're able to cultivate to this level. It's enough to show that your aptitude is not bad. I think, if you're given enough time and a suitable environment, you'll definitely become an outer disciple in 10 years. When the surrounding disciples heard this, they all looked up at Lu Lihong and gave him a thumbs up from the bottom of their hearts. See, this is the style of a senior brother. At the same time, the way they looked at Zhang Xiaohua was also different. She was someone who had a high chance of becoming an outer disciple. She was a rising star. If they didn't curry favor with her now, when would they? This Lu Lihong really knows how to win people over, Zhang Xiaohua secretly said. She then cupped her hands and said, Thank you for your encouragement, Senior Brother Lu. I'll definitely cultivate diligently and use Senior Brother Lu as my guiding light on the path of cultivation. I'll climb along the path that Senior Brother Lu has walked. I hope that Senior Brother Lu will guide me more in the future. Lu Lihong nodded and said, Of course, of course. After all, we're both apprentices from the Pill Tower Hall. Yes, we're both from the Rejuvenation Valley. If I don't take care of you, who else can I take care of? Then, let's not fight this time. You can take the herbs and give me the Yuandan pill. Won't that be enough? Zhang Xiaohua laughed mischievously. Lu Lihong's body swayed again and again before he finally steadied himself. He wiped the sweat off his forehead and said, This won't do. The most taboo in martial arts is to reap without sowing. That will cause the foundation to be unstable. If I let you get the pill easily today, you may want to take more shortcuts when you cultivate in the future. The slightest difference can lead to a great error. Maybe my little kindness today will cause an obstacle in your future cultivation, After talking for a long time, he still couldn't give it to her. Chen Feng looked at the sky with a smile and coughed. Junior brother Lu, it's already late. Lu Lihong stopped talking. But he still didn't forget to educate Zhang Xiaohua. You must remember what I said today. This is based on my many years of cultivation experience. Zhang Xiaohua deeply bowed and said, Thank you, senior brother Lu. He didn't quite understand why the Lu Lihong from last night and today's Lu Lihong didn't seem to have the same attitude. However, looking at his earnest teaching today, he really did seem like an amiable senior brother. His teachings were also to the point and were indeed correct. Although Zhang Xiaohua felt that there was something wrong, he could only nod his head. Seeing Zhang Xiaohua bow, Lu Lihong helped him up and said, Okay, let's not talk about it anymore. Now, let me see how your junior brother's martial arts are. Then, he stretched out his right hand and left leg. I will only use this hand and one leg to attack. If the other hand and leg attack, then it's my loss. Okay. Zhang Xiaohua also walked in front of Lu Lihong and took a stance. Senior brother Lu, please advise me. Lu Lihong stretched out his right hand and said, Junior brother Ren, please advise me too. You first. Zhang Xiaohua smiled. She took a step forward and used the Big Dipper Divine Fist on Lu Lihong's left shoulder. -3. Chapter 590. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua's fist was about to hit him, Lu Lihong calmly raised his left palm in front of him, blocking the direction of Zhang Xiaohua's fist. Zhang Xiaohua stared blankly and muttered, Didn't you just say? Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua's fist was clearly sluggish and her eyes were filled with doubt, Lu Lihong didn't back down. His left palm didn't move, but the 4 fingers of his right hand clenched and directly struck towards Zhang Xiaohua's wrist. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua immediately understood. This senior martial brother Lu is really crafty. He actually made a fuss about the words. He only said to use one hand and one leg to attack. As long as the other hand and one leg attacked, it would be considered a loss. He didn't say that the other hand and one leg couldn't be used to defend. It seems like he's still fussing over the joke I made last night. However, how could Zhang Xiaohua take it to heart? She didn't exchange blows with Zhang Xiaohua. She pulled back her fist and leaned slightly to the side. Her left leg flew out, but it was Lu Lihong's right leg. She wanted to see how Lu Lihong would defend. Lu Lihong also had a few moves. Seeing the position of Zhang Xiaohua's leg, he knew what she was trying to do. He exerted strength in his legs and jumped up. With a spring kick, his left leg cut towards Zhang Xiaohua's knee. Zhang Xiaohua had already held back 60% of her strength. When she saw Lu Lihong's spring kick, she pulled back the leg she had just kicked out and jumped up. She was actually the same height as Lu Lihong. She stretched out her 2 hands. One hand blocked Lu Lihong's leg, while the other went straight for Lu Lihong's face. Who told me to use both hands? Of course, Lu Lihong wouldn't let Zhang Xiaohua do as she wished. He immediately changed his move. Thus, the first dozens of moves between the two were fake and real. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, their fists and feet didn't touch. After a few moves, Zhang Xiaohua understood that Lu Lihong was testing her moves. But on the other hand, didn't Zhang Xiaohua have the same idea? When Zhang Xiaohua was practicing martial arts in the Huanxi Mountain Villa, she had read many fist techniques in order to learn the moves of the Big Dipper Magical Fist. She had an impression of the commonly seen fist techniques in Jianghu. But Lu Lihong's moves and movements were clearly different from what Zhang Xiaohua had seen before. Lihong's moves were clearly light and graceful, and when he was wearing a white gown to display twos to use. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Zhang Xiaohua's brows were slightly wrinkled. To be honest, he still hadn't figured out Lu Lihong's true intentions. Did Lu Lihong really want to help him, apologize to him, and use the precious Yuandan pill to exchange for his medicinal herbs? If that was the case, then Zhang Xiaohua was willing to treat Lu Lihong as a real senior brother and completely forget about the matter of the dragon scale fruit. After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly stretched out a palm from under her armpit and directly slapped Lu Lihong's left shoulder. Her palm strike was very clever, and it was precisely Lu Lihong's flaw. Lu Lihong's right hand and left leg couldn't attack. If he really wanted to exchange the Yuandan pill for an elixir, then he would have to raise his left hand to attack. Otherwise, it would be too late to just defend. Or if he only defended, then Zhang Xiaohua's palm strike would land on his body. In terms of moves, Lu Lihong had already lost. It was a good opportunity for the two to get off the stage. Sure enough, Lu Lihong's eyes were filled with astonishment. He didn't seem to believe that Zhang Xiaohua could make such an exquisite move. However, his reaction was the same as Zhang Xiaohua's. He moved his body to the right and raised his left hand, trying to block Zhang Xiaohua's palm. But at this time, Zhang Xiaohua's palm had already landed. Seeing that Zhang Xiaohua's palm was about to land, Zhang Xiaohua's lips curled into a smile. She thought to herself, as expected, this senior brother Lu is really a good person. However, I can't let him take away the elixir. Zhang Xiaohua was about to withdraw her palm to meet Lu Lihong's palm. At this time, she saw Lu Lihong's right arm suddenly stop and rapidly collide with Zhang Xiaohua's palm. Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. If she hit him, wouldn't she win? That wouldn't be good. Just as she was about to withdraw her palm, she suddenly saw a mocking look in Lu Lihong's eyes. How was this the look of someone who did a good deed without leaving his name behind? Could it be that I was wrong? Thus, Zhang Xiaohua didn't change her move. Her palm was still aimed at Lu Lihong's shoulder. But when Zhang Xiaohua's palm touched Lu Lihong's shoulder, she felt a strong force. Lu Lihong had channeled his internal energy to his shoulder and used it to force Zhang Xiaohua to retreat. Zhang Xiaohua's heart turned cold. Then, a mocking smile appeared on her face. This senior brother Lu really isn't here to do a good deed. Although I don't know what his goal is, exchanging elixir for elixir is definitely a lie. Presumably, she also gave up on the idea of probing Lu Lihong. With a cry of surprise, she fell backwards. Seeing this, Lu Lihong didn't chase after her. He just stood there and watched with a smile. His white robe fluttered in the wind. He really had a good appearance and a good temperament. He looked at Zhang Xiaohua. She flew back a few feet and landed on the ground. She stood up like a carp and held her other wrist. She said in a dispirited voice, "Senior brother Lu is really powerful. Your internal energy is far from what this little brother can compare to. Moreover, your technique of channeling your internal energy is also superb. It actually came from your shoulder. This little brother didn't have time to channel his internal energy to my palm. This round, senior brother Lu has won." No. Lu Lihong smiled and said warmly, "Junior brother Ren, you don't have to be so modest. Junior brother Ren's moves are very exquisite. You were actually able to see my flaw. This palm strike forced me to use my internal energy. If it was a normal exchange, I would have lost. However, in order to leave a deep impression on junior brother Ren and let him see the extensive and profound martial arts of the incense school, I think we should have tied. How about we start again?" Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly and secretly said, "What's so fun about it? Looking at your appearance, I don't know what you're thinking. Maybe you want to impress the disciples of the Pill Tower Hall with your demeanor and martial arts? It seems like you've already achieved your goal. This round, you want to win and I want to lose. The result has already been decided. Why should we fight again?" However, Zhang Xiaohua's face was stern. She said, "Thank you, senior brother Lu, for letting me win. This time, senior brother Lu, please make the first move." Lu Lihong nodded and said, "Okay, then I'll make the first move. My fist contains half of my internal energy. Be careful." After he finished speaking, he punched out. When Zhang Xiaohua was refining pills in the morning, she had consumed less than half of her internal energy. She hurriedly went down the mountain and did not have time to replenish it. Hearing Lu Lihong's reminder, she did not dare to be careless. She immediately used 40% of her remaining internal energy to simulate her internal energy. However, when the two fists collided, Zhang Xiaohua immediately knew that it was not good. She hurriedly withdrew her strength, leaving only 30% of her internal energy. However, this 30% of her internal energy was enough to make Lu Lihong's figure retreat slightly. Her eyes revealed a look of surprise. She then smiled and said, "Junior brother Ren, good internal energy. This strength of the bull is indeed the top cultivation method in Jianghu." Zhang Xiaohua was out of breath. She said, Senior brother Lu is too polite. I used nearly 90% of my internal energy to barely block it. Okay, junior brother Ren. If I continue to hide my strength, it would be disrespectful to you. Be careful. I'm going to use 80% of my internal energy. After he finished speaking, he lifted his left leg and kicked out. Seeing Lu Lihong like this, Zhang Xiaohua was already laughing in her heart. This guy's mouth sounds good, but his hands are always dirty. Although his internal energy is not bad, it's not as good as Longting Villa's young Master Long. How can he be my opponent? Thinking about it, Longting Villa's young Master Long's aptitude was not necessarily worse than Lu Lihong's. He had received formal internal energy training from a young age, unlike Lu Lihong, who only learned martial arts after entering Chuanqiang cult. Although he was older than young Master Long, his martial arts were inferior. Since she had figured out Lu Lihong's background, Zhang Xiaohua had a plan in mind. She only needed to use the appropriate jinqi to simulate the internal energy that was far inferior to Lu Lihong's. After fighting for a while, Zhang Xiaohua appeared to be in a mess. The same moves were used frequently, but Lu Lihong found the flaws many times. Zhang Xiaohua was forced to use her internal energy to meet Lu Lihong's attacks. However, Zhang Xiaohua's internal energy was far inferior to Lu Lihong's. Even if Lu Lihong wanted to use his Qinggong to avoid the attacks, Lu Lihong showed no mercy. His body fluttered all over the field. It seemed that his Qinggong was much better than Zhang Xiaohua's. In the end, Zhang Xiaohua finally stopped running and sat down on the grass. She bitterly smiled and said, "Senior brother Lu, this little brother really admires you. Your fist techniques, internal energy cultivation, and Qinggong are all better than this little brother's. In terms of weapons, this little brother basically doesn't know anything about them. I only know how to use a small hoe to remove weeds." Seeing this, Lu Lihong also stopped. He was also slightly out of breath. However, he still smiled warmly and said, "Junior brother Ren, let's fight again. I see that you still have some strength left. We martial artists must face difficulties and never admit defeat." Thinking back to those years, if I lacked the slightest bit of confidence in the face of hardships, how could I have achieved what I have today? Don't. Zhang Xiaohua was out of breath. She repeatedly waved her hand and said, "Let's stop here. Senior brother Lu, although your success can be replicated, after all, not everyone is like you. Anyway, I'm tired today. I just want to have a good rest. You see, okay." Lu Lihong's voice was slightly regretful. He said, "Since junior brother Ren said so, then I won this round. I want to help you, but I can't. Sigh, junior brother Ren, you still have to work hard. I hope that 10 years later, you can stand in front of me with a new face and stronger martial arts and bravely challenge me." Zhang Xiaohua was speechless. She could only smile bitterly and said, "Thank you, senior brother Lu, for your encouragement. I heard that our pill expanding hall also has secret martial arts manuals. Wait for me to find some and train hard. I will strive to have the qualifications to challenge senior brother. Good junior brother, I believe in you. Where there is a will, there is a way." Lu Lihong put his warm hand on Zhang Xiaohua's shoulder. It was the standard image of a real senior brother. -3. Chapter 591. At this time, old consecrator Lei, who had been observing from afar for a long time, shouted, "The gambling fight between Lu Lihong of Wuming Hall and Ren Xiaoyao of Pill Expanding Hall is now over. Lu Lihong of Wuming Hall wins." Therefore, Zhang Xiaohua finally lost in this gambling fight that she couldn't even release her divine sense in time. All right. The spectators were filled with jubilation as all the disciples of the Pill Opening Hall clamored without end. They were deeply proud that they were able to witness such a wonderful bet, a touching show of affection between fellow disciples, and a bet that placed friendship first and competition second. Proud. Proud. More importantly, they had all bet on Lu Lihong to win and earned a certain amount of points. Of course, there were also a few individuals who were wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. They looked at the sky and shouted, "God is unfair. Why didn't there be an upset today?" Yes, God was unfair. But why was God so unfair? It seemed that even God didn't know. Only those who could manipulate the outcome of the gambling fight knew. And Zhang Xiaohua was precisely this kind of person. Perhaps only when the stakes of the gambling fight were greater than Zhang Xiaohua's psychological expectations would there be a situation of God's fairness. However, with Zhang Xiaohua's upset earlier, there were now so many people who wanted to follow in her footsteps. Naturally, there would be a situation of God's unfairness. Not to mention the joy and sorrow of the disciples who had bet on them. Qin Fengxiao and Wu Zhouxiu, who had been waiting outside, immediately walked into the field when they saw the outcome. They smiled and said to Lu Lihong, "Junior brother Lu's martial arts have improved by leaps and bounds. As senior brothers, we are really envious. The outer disciples of Wuming Hall really live up to their reputation." Then he said to Zhang Xiaohua, "Junior brother Ren may have lost, but he must have benefited a lot from exchanging blows with a great expert like junior brother Lu. He will definitely improve if he goes back and comprehends it well. Moreover, junior brother Lu's martial arts are so high. Junior brother Ren losing is normal. It would be strange if he won. Yes, as the ancients said, don't be arrogant if you win, and don't be discouraged if you lose. Junior brother Lu and junior brother Ren should encourage each other." Zhang Xiaohua said with a face full of shame, "Headmaster Chun is right. Junior brother was very proud of winning a few gambling fights by luck. Now, it seems that there is always someone better. Senior brother Lu's martial arts are so high. You must be one of the top figures among the outer disciples of Wuming Hall. I think the disciples who came with us from Rejuvenation Valley aren't as good as senior brother Lu." After a little flattery, Lu Lihong's face was a little red. He glanced at Yang Yao, who was talking with a few disciples not far away, and said with a smile, "You flatter me. We are all outer disciples. There is no absolute difference in our martial arts. Some people are good at fist skills, some people are good at lightness skill. I was just lucky. All aspects are more balanced. The disciples who can go to Rejuvenation Valley with Pill Spreading Hall don't rely on martial arts. They only have some experience in Jianghu or some foundation in the sect. I was just a disciple of Pill Spreading Hall. I was not trained by Wuming Hall since I was young. I didn't have the opportunity to be sent out." Then he looked at Zhang Xiaohua and said meaningfully, "Even if you enter Wuming Hall and become an outer disciple, if you don't have a familiar master or elder to take care of you, you won't have a chance to stand out. Even your daily duties may not be better than others." Zhang Xiaohua understood. He was reminding her, "Don't look at me patrolling the mountain in Wuming Hall. It was not because my martial arts were not good. It was only because I didn't have a foundation in Wuming Hall, and they didn't like me." However, Zhang Xiaohua immediately had a question mark in his heart. Lu Lihong's words are so vague. Could there be another meaning behind them? Does he want me to get close to him so that I can hug his thigh when I enter Wuming Hall? But do I need to hug your thigh? If there is a chance, wouldn't it be better for me to hug Lord Peacock Kong's thigh? Haha. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiaohua's face blushed for no reason. This, cough cough, her thoughts seemed to be a little impure. Thus, Zhang Xiaohua nodded and probed, "Senior martial brother Lu's kind intentions are appreciated by me. We're both from Rejuvenation Valley, and we've both stayed in the Pill Expansion Hall's grass division. I feel closer to senior martial brother Lu for no reason. Even if I can't enter the outer sect in the future, I'll definitely remember senior martial brother's guidance today." "You're too modest, junior brother Ren. You've just arrived at the Pill Expanding Hall, but you're already so skilled. You're much stronger than me at that time. The door of the Wuming Hall is always open to you. I'll be waiting for you there, but don't let me wait for too long." Qin Fengxiao also smiled and said, "That's right. If junior brother Ren can enter Wuming Hall, it will be a good story in the herb department of Pill Expanding Hall. Moreover, it is my honor to have an outer disciple in Tianmu Peak." "Haha, junior brother Ren, don't feel any pressure. Just make sufficient preparations before taking the assessment. Don't expect me to be in a hurry like Headmaster Chun. It is inevitable that I will delay my whole life." Wu Zhouxiu also nodded and said, "Only he knew his own affairs the best." Zhang Xiaohua knew that becoming an outer disciple was a piece of cake for him. If he didn't want to enter the outer gate secretly, he could enter the outer gate now. Well, the premise was that he knew how to enter the outer gate. However, Zhang Xiaohua didn't pretend to be polite after hearing their honest words. He bowed deeply and said, "Senior brothers, thank you for your kind words. I will keep it in mind." As they spoke, the spectating disciples also dispersed, leaving only a few important figures of the ruling hall and pill-expanding hall. Old Consecrator Lay and the others also walked over while the disciples were counting the points. Old Consecrator Lay and the others were people who had stayed at Lingering Fragrance Peak. Lu Liheng naturally didn't dare to neglect them and went up to chat with them with a smile. After a few words of small talk, Old Consecrator Lay said, "Martial nephew Lu's talent is outstanding. It is indeed extraordinary. Your martial arts seems to have reached perfection. Your skill is almost on par with my hall master." Lu Liheng's face turned red, and he quickly shook his head. "Old Consecrator Lay, you are flattering me." Although Hall Master Ziguang is the outer gate Hall Master, he was also an inner disciple back then. "Even if I cultivate for another 30 years, I will definitely not be a match for the old Hall Master." Haha, Martial Nephew Lu is already not bad. I remember seeing Martial Nephew Lu's skill at the Wuming Hall Martial Arts Competition 5 years ago. It is much better than before. Old Consecrator Feng also stroked his beard and said, "That's right. This year seems to be the season of the Twilight Orchid Refinement. This is one of the outer sect disciple tests. Martial Nephew Lu, are you prepared to get a good result in the trial?" Hearing Old Consecrator Lay's question, Lu Liheng was a little hesitant. He thought for a moment and said, "To be honest, Old Consecrator Lay, I have been cultivating in the outer sect for so many years. As my martial arts have improved, I have increasingly admired the martial arts of the Wuming Hall. You also know that the martial arts that the Wuming Hall can cultivate are the superficial of the Wuming Hall's martial arts. I have always wanted to go to the inner sect to take a look, but..." Lu Liheng hesitated for a moment. "But the quota for the Twilight Orchid Refinement is limited. Not every outer sect disciple is qualified to enter, so, yes, that's true. Although passing the Twilight Orchid Refinement will only give you the qualification to enter the inner sect disciple test, if you are lucky, you can directly become an inner sect disciple. This is an opportunity that your Wuming Hall disciples will fight for even if they break their heads." "That's right. The other trials only determine the qualification, and then there is elimination. How can it be more convenient than the Twilight Orchid Refinement?" Old Consecrator Lay shook his head. "Although it is convenient, it is not easy. Every time the Twilight Orchid Refinement, many outer sect disciples will be injured and even lose their lives. Martial Nephew, you must not be careless. It's not just the outer sect disciples. Even the inner sect disciples have been injured. It's just that, I don't even have the qualification to enter, let alone the danger of my life." Lu Liheng smiled bitterly. Zhang Xiaohua, who was beside him, was puzzled. She asked Chen Fengxiao in a low voice, "Head Chen, what is this Twilight Orchid Refinement?" Chen Fengxiao pointed to the south with his finger and said, "About 100 miles south from here, there is a big canyon that is filled with white fog all day long. It is called the Twilight Grand Canyon. Normally, people are not allowed to go near it. Every 5 years, the white fog at the mouth of the canyon will dissipate, revealing the road that leads to the canyon. There is a large plain and forest in the canyon, as well as a mountain range. Because there are few people, there are many rare medicinal herbs growing there. Every time the Twilight Orchid Refinement, our pill-expanding hall will send some disciples into the canyon to pick some medicinal herbs. Back then, when I was in my prime, I also..." "What the?" Zhang Xiaohua was sweating profusely. She interrupted, "Head Chen, is picking medicinal herbs a trial? That shouldn't make senior brother Lu's face change color when he talks about the canyon, right?" "Hee, of course not. What I am talking about is what our pill-expanding hall does. Well, in fact, the Twilight Grand Canyon is a treasure house. There are many precious things inside. Not only our pill-expanding hall, the other halls such as the Refining Hall, Cleansing Jade Hall, and even the Heaven and Earth Hall will send people into the canyon. Oh, I heard that the inner disciples will also go in. However, when I went in that year, I did not see them. Even the disciples of the other pill-expanding halls have not seen them." Zhang Xiaohua no longer urged him. He knew that Chen Fengxiao wanted to show off his knowledge. Sure enough, he paused for a moment and said, Although this Yulon Grand Canyon is a treasure trove, there are endless dangers inside. Huh? Zhang Xiaohua was surprised. She could not help but ask, what risks? Because our fragrant religion has been passed down for tens of thousands of years, and the Twilight Grand Canyon has always been deserted. Therefore, there are many fierce beasts inside. Beasts? Zhang Xiaohua was surprised again. She said, what's so strange about that? As long as there are mountains, there will be wild beasts. No matter how fierce they are, how can they beat people who know martial arts? Haha, that's right. Therefore, ordinary disciples like us must be escorted by the outer court disciples of Wuming Hall when we enter the canyon. Zhang Xiaohua suddenly understood. Of course, escorting us is not part of their training, Chen Feng said with a smile. There are more chapters. -3. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.